Every night for 12 years, this man is hunted by monsters in his sleep, and every night, death in the dream sends him jolting back to reality. This agonizing loop between two worlds has left him utterly, bone-deeply exhausted. He honed himself into a master warrior just to endure the torment. But after 12 years, his only remaining wish is for a single night of sound sleep. Instead, his ravaged body finally gives out, and he dies. He awakens feeling a clarity he hasn't known in years, truly rested at last. But it's a cruel trick. His death in the real world has trapped him in his personal hell forever. Realizing there's no escape, a new, grim determination takes root. So when the first monster approaches, he doesn't run. For the first time, he feels an urge to fight. Finally free from his exhaustion, he unleashes 12 years of fury and cuts the beast down with ease. He knows what must be done to survive, consuming the monster's core to claim its strength. The man who was haunted by nightmares is gone, and in his place, a predator is born. Now fully in the demonic realm, our protagonist surveys his surroundings from a treetop perch. He stretches, feeling remarkably refreshed after another night of perfect sleep, a luxury he hasn't experienced in years. It's been a month since he crossed over, a time he spent adapting and surviving in this harsh wilderness. He reflects on his journey from the darkness of his past life toward the light, acknowledging the newfound urge to fight that now fills him. However, he remains pragmatic, knowing that hunting for sport and risking his life for fun would be utter madness. From his hiding spot, he observes a powerful bat-like monster feasting on its kill. And despite his cautious nature, he can't entirely suppress the instinctual urge to fight rising within him. He only hunts for two reasons: when he needs food or when he can obtain a new power, and right now, he's getting hungry. With hunger as his motivation, he launches a swift and deadly attack on the unsuspecting beast, and with a single brutal swing of his sword, he severs the monster. As for the second reason, it's to obtain a new power, which he finds in the form of a glowing essence within the monster. He doesn't hesitate, consuming the grotesque but powerful essence directly from the monster's corpse. Because he knows that by eating these essences, he has a chance to absorb a monster's unique powers and grow stronger. This grim diet has been the key to his survival, making it easier for him to adapt to this dangerous world. While surviving, he has also made another important discovery about the body he now inhabits. Pulling out a token, he realizes he's taken over the body of a third-class mercenary, and that he can miraculously read the local language. This mercenary token serves as solid evidence of this world's social structure, and the mere existence of such a token sparks a new hope within him. It's proof that people are living somewhere in this world, a beacon of light in the oppressive darkness. But his hopeful thoughts are abruptly cut short when he spots something unnatural on the forest floor. He stops in his tracks, shocked to find a man-made object hidden in the undergrowth. It's a large steel bear trap, a clear sign of human presence. The implications of his discovery immediately dawn on him. With a surge of excitement, he realizes that if there's a trap, there must be people nearby. Following the trail, he sprints toward a bright clearing ahead. His search pays off as he emerges from the woods to find a small, isolated house. After a month of solitude, he stares in disbelief, having finally found a sign of civilization. He cautiously approaches the house, knocking and calling out to see if anyone is home. Finding no one inside, his eyes land on a single, leather-bound book sitting on a table. Intrigued, he reaches out to examine the mysterious tome. He picks up the book and reads its title, Demonic Realm Chronicles. His eyes widen as he realizes the potential importance of his find. Eagerly, he flips through the pages, discovering a meticulous record of this world's history and lore. Clutching the book, he understands that this knowledge is absolutely essential for his survival. But his reading is interrupted by the sound of someone stepping into the house. A gruff, white-haired old man appears in the doorway, demanding to know who he is. The old man, Hector, aims a crossbow at him, threatening to shoot if he doesn't get a clear answer. While glad to see another person, our protagonist realizes he's been mistaken for a common robber. Therefore, he raises his hands placatingly, explaining that he simply stumbled upon the remote house out of curiosity. Hector is unmoved, gruffly ordering him to get lost. He reluctantly agrees to leave, but his gaze lingers on the invaluable book on the table. Just as he turns to go, he can't resist placing a hand on the book in a last-ditch effort, and boldly asks if he can borrow the book, even offering to pay for it. Hector's eyes narrow suspiciously as he coldly asks what will happen if he refuses. Knowing his survival depends on it, the young man steels his resolve. His hand moves instinctively to the hilt of his sword. With his eyes glowing a dangerous red, he states that if Hector refuses, he might just have to become a robber after all. The two men face off, the tension thick as a fight seems inevitable. Hector holds his ground, his aim unwavering. Meanwhile, our protagonist assesses his opponent, confident in his own strength and unafraid of a fight. Breaking the tension, Hector lowers his weapon, noting that a real robber wouldn't ask to read a book before introducing himself. Sensing the immediate danger has passed, the young man introduces himself as Kim Woojin. Finding the name strange, Hector is asked to simply call him Jin, which he finds more agreeable. The protagonist, now Jin, sweats nervously, realizing his Korean name is difficult for the locals to pronounce. Hector explains that the book is too precious to be lent out, but offers Jin a compromise: he can stay and read it here. The deal is struck when Hector asks him to help with simple chores in return, an offer Jin gratefully accepts. And so, he finds a temporary home in the middle of the dangerous demonic realm. Later, the aroma of a hot, bubbling stew fills the small cabin. Though Hector has a gruff exterior, his actions show he isn't a bad person, and he shares a meal with Jin. Jin is visibly moved, savoring the taste of warm soup for the first time in a very long while. The simple meal is so delicious it brings a tear to his eye. He jokingly thinks Hector might be an angel. The next morning, Hector prepares to leave for a hunt that he says might take some time. His determined expression reveals his true mission: to hunt down the monster that killed his comrades and get revenge. Jin observes the old man's uncharacteristic nervousness, noting that even a strong man like him seems on edge. From his demeanor, he deduces that the monster Hector is hunting must be incredibly powerful. While alone, he buries himself in the demonic realm chronicles, absorbing as much information as possible. He learns that the current state of the world traces its origins back to the once great Northern Empire. The chronicles tell of a greedy king who, seeking ultimate power, foolishly tampered with an otherworldly gate. His ambition backfired spectacularly when he was overwhelmed by the gate's immense and chaotic energy. That day marked the beginning of the calamity, as the gate was torn open, revealing a horde of malevolent eyes from another dimension. An endless tide of powerful monsters poured forth, transforming the entire northern continent into a demonic realm in just 9 years. To combat the threat, humanity's scattered factions united to form the Order Alliance, erecting a great barrier to halt the demonic spread. Just then he closes the book, having gained a crucial understanding of this world's tragic history. He reflects on the wealth of useful information he has learned. Connecting the dots, he realizes that since the monsters grew weaker as he traveled toward the light, he must have started deep within the demonic realm. Just then, Hector sprints back toward the cabin in a desperate panic. Meanwhile, Jin ponders how far into this hellish landscape he had wandered alone. Hector, gasping for breath, can't believe the strength of the monsters pursuing him. While Jin contemplates his own power level, a pack of wolven beasts barrels through the forest after the old man. A massive, muscular werewolf with glowing red eyes leads the terrifying pack. Hector pushes his aging body to its limit, fleeing for his life. But the monstrous wolves gain on him with terrifying speed. His foot slips and he nearly falls, his stamina clearly fading. He desperately fires a volley of enchanted bolts at the lead monster. The werewolves, however, easily swat the projectiles away with their claws. Seeing his attack fail, Hector curses in frustration, realizing he is completely outmatched, and he runs again to save his life. Just then, Jin calmly steps out of the house, his large blade drawn and his eyes glowing red. Spotting him, Hector yells for him to run, desperately trying to warn him of the extreme danger. But Jin ignores the warning, bypassing the old man to intercept the monster. Hector can only look on in shock, unable to comprehend Jin's fearless advance. With cold determination, Jin locks eyes with the charging werewolf. Then he bursts forward, his speed far exceeding that of a normal human. In a stunning display of agility, he leaps high into the air, positioning himself above the beast. The werewolf looks up, roaring in fury as Jin prepares to strike. He brings his sword down in a devastating arc, cleaving straight through the monster's thick arm and shoulder. The powerful slash continues downward, bisecting the massive werewolf from head to toe in a single, fluid motion. The two halves of the colossal beast crash heavily to the ground. The rest of the pack skids to a halt, snarling with a mix of fear and aggression at their leader's demise. Hector is left utterly speechless, his eyes wide with disbelief at what he just witnessed, and struggles to process the scene, realizing Jin took down the formidable werewolf in a single slash. The bisected corpse of the once mighty werewolf lies defeated in a pool of its own blood. Jin turns to face the stunned old man, his expression unreadable. With a nonchalant smirk, he casually asks, "Is this monster considered strong?" Still processing the scene, Hector can't believe he's even being asked if a werewolf is strong. With a grim expression, he confirms that the beast is, in fact, incredibly strong. Jin takes in this new information, his expression unreadable as he simply says, "I see." Turning his attention to the approaching pack, he decides to deal with the rest of the wolves before getting more details from Hector. The remaining wolves, led by a large red beast, charge forward to avenge their fallen alpha. Our guy quickly assesses the threat, noting there are about 40 wolves, not strong but numerous enough to be a problem if he's careless. And so, he formulates a strategy. Instead of fighting the whole pack, he'll decapitate the leadership by killing the second-in-command to shatter their morale. With his eyes glowing red, he focuses his intent on his new target, and identifies the large red wolf at the front of the pack as the one he needs to take down. Ignoring the lesser wolves, he leaps directly towards the pack leader, identifying it as the first one he needs to kill. As he closes in, he and the red scout wolf lock eyes. A moment of truth passing between them. But the red wolf hesitates, sensing an overwhelming killing intent it has never encountered before. In a shocking turn, the beast whimpers in terror and bolts, abandoning its pack and fleeing for its life. The would-be second-in-command yelps pathetically as it sprints away from the battlefield. The rest of the wolf pack freezes in utter confusion, watching their leader flee in cowardice. With their morale shattered, the entire pack follows their leader's example and scrambles to escape. Hector is flabbergasted, wondering aloud how wolves known for their bravery could simply turn tail and run. Meanwhile, Jin smirks, impressed that the lead wolf was smart enough to properly assess the dire situation and save itself. The red scout wolf continues its panicked retreat, not daring to look back. Sometime later, back inside the safety of Hector's cabin, the situation has calmed down. Hector explains the massive bounty on the werewolf's head, revealing it's worth at least 40 gold coins. At this, Jin asks if that's a lot of money, to which Hector confirms that it certainly is. He's shocked to learn that 40 gold is enough to live comfortably for 6 to 7 years without working. A realization dawns on him. If a creature he considers a trash monster has such a high bounty, a wide, confident smile spreads across his face as he understands the opportunity before him. Then he can simply hunt similar monsters whenever he needs cash, effectively creating an endless source of income. He concludes that life in this new world might actually be far easier than the 12 years of hell he endured. As a reward and payment, Hector places provisions, coins, food, and a map on the valuable werewolf hide. He hands over a full kit to Jin, the werewolf hide, jerky, a pouch of silver coins, and a pioneer map. The old man instructs him to follow the map to Pioneer Village and find a man named Jacob to sell the hide. Jin is hesitant to accept such valuable items, but Hector assures him Jacob will offer a fair price, and explains it's simply payment, as not only did the young man kill the werewolf, but he also settled the old hunter's own grudge against the beast. As a sign of gratitude and farewell, Hector offers his hand, and sincerely thanks Jin for getting his revenge and wishes him well, hoping they might meet again someday. Jin accepts the handshake, thanking Hector for his hospitality and help. Having parted ways, he sets off from the secluded cabin. Hector watches from his porch as the young man who saved his life departs. Carrying his new gear and the valuable hide, Jin walks the path towards his first taste of civilization in this world. Along the way, he spots a familiar figure watching him from a high cliff. It's the Red Scout Wolf, cautiously following him from a distance. Following the map, he finally arrives at the wooden fortifications of Pioneer Village. He takes a moment to observe the first human settlement he's seen since being trapped in this world. After being cleared by a guard, he enters the gates, noting that the town is quite well stocked. As he walks through the streets, he immediately notices the suspicious and hostile glares from the locals. A group of thugs size him up, clearly marking him as an outsider. He understands that everyone is on high alert because he's a stranger in their territory. Still, he considers their wariness understandable in such a harsh environment, and reflects on a hard truth of this world: sometimes, people are far more dangerous than monsters. He makes his way to a local tavern, the most likely place to find information and his contact. The bustling tavern falls quiet as the heavily laden stranger steps inside. Ignoring the stares, he makes his way through the crowd towards the bar. As he approaches, he unloads the massive werewolf hide onto the counter, immediately drawing the attention of the barkeep. Declining the offer of a beer, he gets straight to business, asking for a man named Jacob. At the mention of the name, a rough-looking man sitting at the bar turns to face him. The man introduces himself as Jacob, and, casually carving a piece of fruit, asks what he can do for him. Jin's first impression is immediate and certain. This man has the face of a scammer. Nevertheless, he explains that Hector sent him hoping to sell the werewolf hide. Jacob drops his knife in shock, exclaiming in disbelief that Hector actually managed to kill a werewolf. Seeing Jacob jump to the wrong conclusion, he decides it's better to let him believe Hector was the one who killed it. Jacob's demeanor shifts from shock to awe and greed as he confirms the hide is genuine. As his thugs gather, he mutters that he should have known the old veteran still had it in him. A wicked, greedy smile spreads across Jacob's face as he hatches a plan. With eyes full of avarice, he gloats that he knew Hector could pull it off, revealing his sinister intentions. Sensing the atmosphere change, Jin looks around to find himself surrounded by Jacob's men. With a cold look, he warily asks what they think they're doing. Jacob mockingly drapes the hide over himself, telling Jin to get lost while he still can if he wants to live. His initial assessment was correct, and he calls Jacob out for betraying Hector's trust. Jacob merely justifies his theft as an investment, claiming that supplying Hector was a loss he now needs to recoup. With a smug look, he claims he needs the hide to make up for all his supposed losses. Jin's eyes flare with rage as he contemplates killing the man on the spot, but he forces himself to hold back. Reasoning that he can't kill a man over a mere hide, he tries to calm himself, thinking Jacob is lucky that he's a nice guy. But just as he shows restraint, Jacob provokes him further by throwing a drink in his face, and taunts him, telling the kid not to get any clever ideas and to just get lost. Dripping with ale, Jin remains silent for a moment, his patience pushed to its absolute limit. Appearing to concede, he stands and turns to leave the tavern. He walks towards the door and intentionally drops his pouch of silver, seemingly abandoning everything to Jacob's crew. Jacob smirks, grabbing the hide and believing the kid made the smart choice by backing down. But a sudden thud makes Jacob turn around, confused by the unexpected noise. To his shock, the young man hasn't left. Instead, he has hoisted a heavy wooden table over his shoulder. Jin calls out to Jacob, his back still turned, the confrontation clearly not over. With a menacing grin, he tells him that if he planned to scam someone, he should have gone for a killing blow, not a cheap shot. Realizing his opponent isn't backing down, Jacob snarls that he takes back his comment about him being smart. He orders his thugs to attack, shouting that the kid clearly doesn't value his life. With a battle cry, Jacob's men charge forward, ready to kill. They scream for him to die. Resigned to violence, our protagonist decides that killing scum like them won't cause him any guilt. In a flash, he dodges the first swing, his movements far too quick for the thug to follow. The thug is stunned by the sheer force of the parry, realizing too late that his opponent is incredibly strong. Our guy's eyes glow with killing intent as he unleashes his true combat abilities. Moving with blinding speed, he carves through the charging thugs, who are helpless against his assault. An axe-wielding thug brings his weapon down, aiming to crush him from behind. But he easily sidesteps the clumsy attack, letting the axe head smash into the floorboards. Using it as a lever, he kicks a heavy wooden table straight into the thug's face. The thug can only curse as the makeshift projectile smashes into him. The one-sided slaughter continues as our hero cuts down another one of Jacob's men. Splattered with blood, his cold red eyes promise death to anyone still standing. A horrified Jacob stares at the carnage, wondering where this absolute monster could have possibly come from. Refusing to accept defeat, he steels himself, knowing he'll die for nothing if he doesn't fight back. Jin's blade flashes in a deadly arc, cutting down yet another thug. And he follows up with a brutal punch. The force of the blow pierces the man's chest. And finally, bloodied, the man collapses to the ground. Our guy face is a mask of cold indifference, the fight having been little more than an annoyance. Utterly terrified, Jacob screams at his few remaining conscious men to run for their lives. The survivors, including Jacob, scramble away from the tavern in a desperate bid to escape. They burst through a window and tumble into the street outside. But as Jacob picks himself up, he freezes, his escape blocked by an unexpected new threat. His eyes widen in sheer terror at the creature standing before him. The Red Scout Wolf bars their path, and Jacob panics, wondering why a demonic beast is inside the village walls. Just then, Jin calmly steps out of the tavern, cornering them between himself and the wolf. Ignoring the terrified thugs, the Red Wolf walks directly towards Jin, its attention solely on him. He watches the approaching beast, confused by its behavior, and finally recognizes the creature as the Scout Wolf that had fled from him in the forest. Still radiating killing intent, he coldly asks the wolf if it came here to die. The wolf is instantly petrified by his menacing aura. It immediately drops to the ground and rolls over, whimpering in a gesture of complete submission. The massive demonic beast begins panting happily, wagging its bladed tails like a puppy wanting a belly rub. The wolf continues its bizarre display, squirming on the ground in front of him. Jacob and his men can only stare in utter disbelief, unable to comprehend what they are seeing. Even Jin is taken aback by the wolf's completely dog-like behavior. A sudden thought strikes him as he connects the wolf's fear with his current actions. Looking between the cornered thugs and the eagerly submissive demonic beast, he gets an idea. Pointing at Jacob's men, he gives the Red Wolf a simple one-word command: bite. Overjoyed to receive an order, the wolf's eyes sparkle as it leaps into action. The beast pounces on the terrified thugs, its massive jaws wide open. The men scream in agony as the demonic beast begins its brutal attack. The brutal maulin ends the confrontation in a spray of blood. Watching his new, terrifyingly obedient pet at work, Jin gives a single word of approval, niece. Jacob watches in horror as the Red Scout wolf, now under Jin's command, begins its ferocious attack on his thugs. Acting as Jin's shadow, the demonic wolf brutally mauls the henchman, its glowing blue eyes filled with predatory fury. Realizing he's completely outmatched, a panicked Jacob desperately tries to think of a way to escape his grim fate, and concludes that the man is a moron. Switching tactics, he and his man prostrate themselves, pathetically begging for their lives and promising to do anything asked of them. Yet even while begging, he seethes with resentment, secretly plotting his revenge for this humiliation. Jin, however, isn't fooled by the display and slams his massive sword into the ground just inches from Jacob's head as a clear warning. As the protagonist looms over him, the terrified thug stammers, "Sir," finally recognizing the absolute power difference. Internally, Jin scoffs at the man's audacity, disgusted by his cowardice. A sinister grin then creeps across his face as he relishes the moment, wondering who this bastard thinks he can fool. The situation triggers a flashback to his past life, where a smarmy factory manager feigned an apology for delaying his salary. He remembers the manager's manipulative excuses, always citing the company's poor financial situation. Back then, he was too soft-hearted and felt he had no choice but to accept the constant lies and exploitation. He then recalls the painful lesson that giving in once only led to further delays, with his salary being held back for months on end. When he finally confronted his manager again, the man was casually practicing his golf swing in the office. The manager had reacted with disdain, calling him a punk for daring to ask for the money he was owed. Adding insult to injury, the man then guilt-tripped him, branding him as selfish for not sticking together during tough times. Back in the present, the memory of being treated like a pushover fuels his resolve. He will not let it happen again. He walks past Jacob, ominously stating that he learned a very important lesson from his past. Jacob can only stare in silent terror, realizing that his pleas for mercy have failed completely. But as Jin turns his back, Jacob sees an opening, and a desperate, foolish grin spreads across his face. He lunges from behind, knife in hand, in a last-ditch effort to kill him. With a wild cry, he brings the knife down, aiming for a fatal blow. But with his battle-honed senses, Jin pivots in an instant, his red eyes glowing with deadly intent. Effortlessly blocking the pathetic attack, he declares that it's scammers like him, who are incapable of understanding the meaning of remorse. The look of pure, unadulterated fear on Jacob's face says it all. He knows he's about to die. In a blur of motion, he delivers a decisive strike, cutting off his head. Jacob's head is severed from his body, his life ending in a spray of blood. With glowing red eyes, Jin stares down at the corpse, his mind made up. And he vows to himself that he will never be taken for a pushover ever again. With the human threats eliminated, he turns his attention to his non-human follower, and contemplates what to do with the Red Scout wolf, whom he casually refers to as that mutt. The wolf, seemingly understanding him, then drops a pouch of gold at his feet as an offering. Jin sees that the pouch is filled with the gold coins Jacob had tried to steal from him. Pondering the gesture, he is impressed by the demonic beast's intelligence. He asks the wolf directly if it wants to tag along, and the beast responds with an expectant look. Confirming its desire, the Red Scout wolf affectionately nuzzles up against him. A rare, faint smile touches Jin's lips as he accepts the creature's silent pledge of loyalty. Patting its head, he acknowledges the wolf as a clever thing. He then officially welcomes his new companion, telling the beast, "Let's get along from now on, mutt." Having acquired a new ally and some starting capital, he sets his sights on civilization. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, he wakes up in a comfortable bed after a full night's sleep, his wolf companion resting nearby. He savors the refreshing feeling of a perfect, deep sleep, a luxury his old life never afforded him. Both man and beast stretch in unison, enjoying a peaceful morning. While washing his blood-soaked clothes, Jin reveals a back covered in the scars of 12 years of nightmarish battles. He then takes a moment to reflect, contemplating the bloody events that have just transpired, and acknowledges that he's killed people for the first time, not just one, but many. However, he ponders the unsettling realization that he feels absolutely no guilt for his actions. He knows it's not simply because they were scum. The emotion he felt was something else entirely. He recognizes the feeling as the same exhilarating thrill he gets from hunting monsters. Clutching his chest, he senses a fundamental and perhaps dangerous change happening within him. Looking at his own hand, he quietly accepts this internal transformation. Though he briefly wonders if he's cursed, he shrugs it off, deciding that survival is all that matters. And he is now certain that his new life in this world will be nothing like his old one. With his new demonic beast companion by his side, he resolves to live a life of abundance and simply enjoy the present. Following the information from Hector's chronicles, he and his wolf arrive at the 5th Pioneer City to cash in the werewolf pelt. He instructs his companion to stay hidden, as demonic beasts aren't welcome within the city walls. He then confidently strides through the streets of the Pioneer City, heading towards the Order Alliance to claim his bounty, and recalls that the Order Alliance is the designated place for monster bounties, and briefly reconsiders his nickname for his new intelligent ally. Soon, he locates the Order Alliance building, spotting a lazy-looking clerk stretching on a balcony. He approaches the bored clerk, who barely acknowledges him before asking what he wants. Jin makes his presence known by slamming the massive, rolled-up werewolf pelt on the counter, startling the clerk. Ignoring the man's surprise, he coolly states that he's here to collect a monster bounty. The clerk eyes the bundle dismissively, scoffing that it's just dogskin and that the Alliance is no place for pranks. However, upon closer inspection, his eyes widen in disbelief. His condescending attitude vanishes instantly as he realizes he's looking at a genuine, high-value werewolf pelt. The flabbergasted clerk stammers, barely able to ask if Jin actually hunted the formidable beast himself. Jin calmly confirms the kill, and his nonchalant attitude further shocks the young man. Given the value of the pelt, he is escorted to a private room to wait while it's officially authenticated. A senior official from the Order Alliance enters, apologizing for the delay and explaining the need for verification. The official confirms the pelt is authentic and presents Jin with a large pouch of gold as his reward. Jin assesses the reward, quickly calculating that it's enough money to live a lazy life for at least 6 or 7 years. Holding the gold, he feels a new kind of trembling, a thrill different from the one he gets during a hunt. A greedy smile spreads across his face as he concludes that having money is definitely a good thing. Just as he is about to take his leave, the senior official stops him. The official, clearly impressed by the werewolf hunt, asks if he would be interested in taking on another request. His interest piqued by the prospect of more money, he listens to the offer. The official explains that a monster has appeared at a nearby quarry, causing a huge problem for the city. Its presence has halted the mining of valuable bloodstone, bringing the city's economy to the brink of ruin. He then warns him that this new monster is rumored to be even stronger than a werewolf. Confident that the man who slew a werewolf can handle it, the official formally offers him the quest. Ever the professional hunter, Jin cuts straight to the chase, asking for the monster's identity. The official reveals the target's ominous name, Mad Skull, and to sweeten the deal, he mentions the monster has a bounty of 70 gold coins, significantly more than the werewolf. Jin's expression shifts. He recognizes the name Mad Skull from the Demonic Realm Chronicles. More than that, a flashback confirms he's faced this very type of monster countless times in his 12 years of Dreamworld battles. He vividly recalls its defining feature, a ridiculously hard skull, scarred with an X, and also remembers its insane aggression and its toughness and strength, which were on a completely different level from a werewolf. Jin grimaces, recalling that the first time he managed to kill one, it took him a month and cost him 28 lives. Unaware of this history, the official asks if he believes he can subdue the beast. Jin pauses, considering how his current, fully rested self compares to his past, exhausted one. A predatory and confident grin then spreads across his face as he accepts the challenge, declaring, "Of course, my next prey has been decided." The setting for the next hunt is an expansive, abandoned quarry, home to the formidable Mad Skull. Into this territory arrives our protagonist Jin, recalling that the quarry's operations were halted entirely because of this one monster. As he surveys the desolate mine, a chill runs down his spine, and he resolves to finish the job as quickly as possible. Just as he's about to proceed, however, a voice calls out, telling him to wait. He turns to find himself confronted by a group of mercenaries who claim they arrived first and are already preparing for battle. Unimpressed, he scoffs at the very idea of a waiting line for monster hunting. His dismissive attitude seems to slightly fluster the mercenary captain. So, changing his approach, the captain invites him to join their team to hunt the Mad Skull together. Jin considers his options. While waiting for them would be a waste of time, he'd rather not fight them over it. He briefly entertains the idea of teamwork, even as one of the other mercenaries worries aloud about splitting the loot further. But remembering his past betrayals, our protagonist is immediately on guard, unable to easily trust anyone in this world. So he questions their motives, asking why a large mercenary group would need his help. The captain, Jonathan, sheepishly admits that he prioritizes safety over raw power, hinting at his team's shortcomings. Switching to a more respectful tone, Jonathan states that he believes Jin is strong and would be a valuable asset to their hunt. Jin senses the shift in demeanor, recognizing it as the deference of the weak to the strong, and asks for the basis of this assumption. Jonathan shrewdly points out that a powerful wolf monster wouldn't follow a weak master. and right on cue, the group's mage, a young woman named Claire, is seen affectionately petting Jin's Red Scout wolf. She marvels at the sight, noting that wolf monsters are fiercely independent and are rarely tamed, even by the Order Alliance. Jin, however, is internally annoyed, wondering when his disobedient wolf, whom he told to stay hidden, decided to reveal itself, and quickly realizes his companion was bribed with a juicy piece of meat, a luxury he himself hasn't enjoyed. Caught red-pawed, the wolf freezes with a guilty look on its face. Startled by its master's glare, the beast drops the coveted meat onto the ground. Our guy silently fumes, aghast that his powerful demonic beast was swayed by a simple piece of meat. However, the aroma of the cooked food causes an involuntary reaction from the starving hunter. His body moves on its own, his hunger reminding him it has been ages since he had a proper meal. A brief but intense internal battle ensues over his dignity versus eating drop food that was just in a dog's mouth. Just as he's about to give in to his primal hunger, a gentle hand stops him. It's Claire, kindly offering him a fresh piece of meat after seeing how hungry he is. Stunned by this simple act of compassion, Jin stares at her in disbelief. This unexpected kindness melts his hardened heart, and in his starved state, he sees her as a trustworthy goddess, sealing his decision to join them. Having accepted their offer, he follows the Black Marlin mercenary group deeper into the quarry. He savors the delicious meal, a world away from the raw monster meat he has been subsisting on. Realizing they skip formalities, Claire initiates introductions. The leader introduces himself as Jonathan, the captain of the Black Marlin mercenary group, and the kind-hearted mage introduces herself as Claire. Catching himself before using his name from Earth, our protagonist simply introduces himself as Jin, officially joining their party. Jonathan gives a subtle, knowing smile, pleased with the new addition to his team. Arriving at a large pit, the captain begins commanding his trap team to set up their nets. He then orders the spear team to move into their assigned positions for the ambush. With the teams in place, Jonathan tells Claire it's time for them to begin their own preparations. Suddenly, Jin is taken aback as a wave of magical energy begins to swirl around him. He watches in awe as Claire floats into the air, channeling power from her grimoire. Our guy recognizes this phenomenon as magic, something he'd only ever read about in the Demonic Realm Chronicles. Claire casts her spell, asking for blessings to be sent upon the land. The Feather Step ability envelops the party, making them feel lighter and faster. Jonathan praises her, commenting that her buffs are as excellent as ever. Claire informs them the speed enhancement will last for 3 minutes, 5 at most. Feeling the buff's effects, the captain tells everyone to stay ready. He then dashes off, announcing that he will lure the Mad Skull into their trap. Jin is genuinely impressed by Jonathan's sudden speed, admitting to himself that magic is pretty cool. For a moment, he wistfully wonders if he could learn to use magic as well. Just then, a lookout's frantic shout cuts through the air, warning everyone that the Mad Skull is approaching. The mercenaries ready their trap, knowing that a single mistake against such a beast could mean death for them all. Jin observes their strategy of luring the monster into a trap for a focused assault, deeming it a solid, if simple, plan. However, given his experience, he harbors serious doubts that such a basic strategy will be enough to take down a Mad Skull. Boosted by Claire's magic, Jonathan dashes, followed by the monster. Just then, he screams for the trap team to spring their ambush. Jonathan successfully baits the enraged Mad Skull, leading it directly into the kill zone. The trap team unleashes their net, perfectly timing it to ensnare the charging beast. The mercenaries pull on the ropes with all their might, securing the powerful monster. And just like that, the Mad Skull is tangled in the heavy-duty net. With the monster immobilized, Jonathan orders the spear team to attack. The spear-wielding mercenaries rush forward to strike. They plunge their weapons into the trapped Mad Skull's hide, but to their horror, the spears barely scratch the monster's tough skin, making a grating metallic sound. The spearmen are thrown off balance as their attacks prove completely ineffective. Enraged, the Mad Skull begins to flex its immense power against the restraints. Jin watches grimly, knowing the situation is about to turn dire. As he predicted, the mercenaries are being completely overpowered by the monster's raw strength. The trap team struggles, crying out as they are dragged around, unable to hold the beast down. With a powerful surge, the Mad Skull begins to rip the net to shreds. The monster's eye glows with fury as it breaks free from the now useless trap. Now unrestrained, it charges headlong towards the nearest target, the terrified mage, Claire. She is paralyzed with fear as the monstrous beast thunders towards her. But in the blink of an eye, Jin appears in front of her, shielding her from the attack. He stands his ground, calmly facing down the unstoppable charge, and he catches the Mad Skull's massive tusks. The rampaging beast is brought to a dead stop, its incredible momentum completely nullified by Jin's overwhelming power. Claire, still in shock, cries out a warning for him to be careful. Without even looking back, he calmly tells her not to worry. Then, with a confident smirk, he reveals to the astonished group that he knows exactly how to defeat a Mad Skull. The fight begins, and he single-handedly braces himself against the Mad Skull's powerful charge, grabbing it by the tusks. Despite his immense strength, he struggles to hold the monster at bay. The creature's raw power proves overwhelming as it frees itself from our guy's grip. At this, he grits his teeth, his hand tightening on his sword. Finding an opening, he swings his blade, but it bounces futilely off the Mad Skull's thick, armored hide. Knocked off balance, he reflects that even though he's gotten stronger, this monster's power is on another level. The Mad Skull lets out a roar, as if to confirm his assessment. Letting his guard down for just a moment, he finds himself nearly overwhelmed by the beast's strength. Suddenly, a mysterious green aura envelops him, catching him by surprise. From a safe distance, Claire casts a support spell, yelling, "I'll help too," just as he's sent flying. He lands gracefully, feeling the effects of the magic buff and noting that his body feels significantly lighter. A smile creeps across his face as he realizes her buff will allow him to use that method to hunt the beast more easily. When Jonathan and the others try to help, he urgently shouts for them to stay back. The mercenaries halt, confused by his command to stay out of the fight. Now surrounded by the magical aura, he prepares to re-engage the Mad Skull. He dashes past the beast, declaring that for this particular hunt, it's easier if he fights alone. And so, his lecture begins. He explains that hunting a Mad Skull is simple if you know a few key things. First, despite its fearsome name, it's just a pig that runs incredibly fast in a straight line. Its critical weakness, however, is that it's terrible at turning, a flaw he easily exploits. His strategy is to use this lack of agility to stop the beast in its tracks. Now much faster thanks to Claire's buff, he leads the charging Mad Skull straight into a large wooden structure. The beast crashes headfirst, screeching in frustration and pain. Just then, our guy notes how the buff has made it even harder for the monster to keep up, and prepares for the second step of his plan. He continues his explanation, stating that the beast's long tusks function like a human's hands. However, since the tusks are too hard to be cut by a sword, he has to find another way. Declaring that he'll aim for its weak point, he leaps into the air and delivers a devastating slash to the Mad Skull's sensitive nose. The monster lets out an agonized shriek as blood erupts from the deep gash on its snout. And he knows that with such an injury, the pain will make it too difficult for the creature to continue its assault. With the Mad Skull crippled and reeling, he closes in to finish the job. First, he swiftly slices through the beast's front leg tendons. Then, he follows up by severing the tendons in its hind legs, completely immobilizing it. Standing over the fallen beast, he states that it won't get another chance to attack. A chillingly satisfied smile spreads across his face as he savors his victory. Just as the battle concludes, Jonathan, Claire, and the rest of the mercenaries rush back into the quarry. Surveying the wreckage, a worried Claire insists they find Jin first, but their search is cut short when they're startled by a menacing figure. It's Jin's Red Scout wolf, standing guard and growling defensively at the approaching mercenaries. Jonathan instinctively pulls a startled Claire behind him for protection. As the massive wolf looms over them, Claire correctly guesses that it's warning them not to interfere. The group relaxes as Jin appears from behind his loyal companion. Jonathan anxiously asks about the Mad Skull, while our protagonist internally laments his inability to resist consuming the monster's essence. However, he coolly informs the confused mercenaries that there is no Mad Skull anymore. Pointing at the massive, bloody carcass on the ground, he casually jokes, "Now, all that's left is pork." The mercenaries are flabbergasted, exclaiming that they've never heard of anyone taking down a Mad Skull solo. Suddenly, the Red Scout wolf begins sniffing the air and whimpering nervously. It turns and lets out an aggressive growl toward the quarry's entrance, alerting the group to a new threat. And from the shadows emerges a second, even larger Mad Skull, its eyes glowing with menace. Panicked, Jonathan shouts for everyone to prepare for another battle, cursing their rotten luck. However, Claire quickly stops him, telling him to wait as she's noticed something different about this new arrival. The mercenaries see that this Mad Skull is a mother, accompanied by her two small piglets. The sad piglets oink plaintively at the scene before them. The mother Mad Skull gazes upon the body of her fallen mate, letting out a guttural, mournful sound. Jin and his wolf watch the somber scene unfold, not interfering. Just then, the mother turns to her children. The entire group watches in silence. To their surprise, the mother begins to lead her young away from the quarry. Claire feels a pang of guilt, realizing the monsters had likely planned to raise their young in the quarry they had just cleared. However, the captain watches them go, simply glad that the situation resolved itself peacefully. Later that night, the victorious group returns to the 5th Pioneer City. They head straight for a local tavern to celebrate their hard-won success. Inside, Jonathan raises a toast, cheering that everyone made it back without serious injury after taking down the Mad Skull. With a flourish, he announces that it's time for the highlight of any hunt, settlement time. The mercenaries roar with excitement, eager to receive their reward. Claire and Jin look on, confused, as the bags of gold seem to contain far more than the promised 70 coins. Jonathan proudly takes credit, explaining that he made a big fuss to secure a larger payment. He reveals his tactic. He told the quest givers there were 2 mad skulls and piglets, exaggerating the danger to demand a bigger reward. Beaming, he announces he negotiated a massive payout of 100 gold coins, and his men cheer for their clever captain. Jin points out the obvious flaw that they didn't actually fight the mother, but Jonathan just deflects with a casual, about that. At this, he flashes a sly grin, admitting that he told a little white lie to secure the extra gold. The mercenaries erupt in laughter, praising their captain's motto, "If you don't get caught, it becomes the truth." Our protagonist watches the exchange with a slight smile, musing that they are certainly an interesting group of people. Jonathan then gets his attention with a friendly hand on his shoulder. He then shocks everyone by announcing his intention to give half of the entire reward to Jin. Jin is stunned by the incredibly generous offer, questioning if he heard correctly. Jonathan insists, stating plainly that without his help, they all would have died, so he should accept the payment happily, and explains that because he inflated the reward, there's more than enough to go around, and sharing with Jin is what everyone wants. Touched, Jin reflects that the team's buff and trap were genuinely helpful after all. He accepts a mug of ale, concluding with a warm feeling that perhaps not everyone in this world is bad. In a show of gratitude, he stands and declares that he'll pay for all the drinks tonight, causing the tavern to erupt in cheers. The mercenaries joyfully accept his offer, and the celebration kicks into high gear. During the festivities, he notices Claire quietly slipping away from the table. He asks where she's going, and she replies that she's off to practice her magic. Our guy is intrigued by her dedication and newfound power. Later, he follows her to a quiet spot outside the city, where he finds her meditating under the full moon, enveloped in magical energy. Watching from a distance, he's impressed that she's training so soon after such an exhausting hunt. The sight of her power makes him contemplate the very nature of magic. As he observes her serene practice, he wonders to himself if he, too, should try learning magic. As they prepare to leave town, Claire readily agrees to teach Jin magic, much to his surprise. She then explains that she was already planning to give him a gift as thanks anyway. With a bit of shade thrown at Jonathan, she adds that since Jin saved her from the Mad Skull, teaching him magic is the least she can do. She praises him, noting that he understands the basics of combat by protecting his mage, unlike some other mercenary groups. Just then, Jonathan cuts in, reminding everyone that magic can't be learned overnight and their group has to leave the village in 2 days. When Claire suggests Jin simply travel with them, Jonathan questions why a powerful monster hunter like him would want to tag along with mercenaries. He then tries to speak for Jin, claiming a brave wolf is most comfortable alone and that they shouldn't intrude on his journey. Feeling pressured by the grand assumptions and having nowhere else to go, our protagonist decides he'll have to tell a little lie. So, he asks Jonathan for their next destination and learns the group is heading to the 4th Pioneer City for a big job. Seizing the opportunity, Jin lies that he was also planning on going there and asks if he can join them. Jonathan and Claire see right through his terrible lie, but are clearly amused and happy to have him along. Both of them enthusiastically welcome him to the group, proclaiming what a coincidence it is and how great it is to have a reliable ally. With his travel plans secured, he smirks as their next destination is officially decided. And so, the Black Marlin mercenary group, now with Jin in their ranks, begins their long journey alongside a colossal reptilian beast of burden. This massive creature is a Tarrasque, a monster selectively bred and tamed by humans for transportation. Recognizing the beast from the chronicles he'd read, our protagonist marvels at the Tarrasque's absolutely massive scale. With Jonathan cheerfully rallying the group, the party sets off on their long road to the next city. 10 days into their journey, however, Jin is struggling to learn the first step of magic, finding it difficult to sense the flow of mana. He reflects on the painful nature of learning through sheer repetition, especially when progress feels non-existent. However, he knows that growth in some areas is only possible through slow, repetitive practice, recalling Claire's effortless demonstration from before. And though he admits the process is hard and can lead to painful plateaus, he remains undeterred. Drawing on his past, he reaffirms that he is all too used to this kind of pain. After all, he survived 12 brutal years in the demonic realm, a trial that has forged his incredible endurance and willpower. Under the full moon, he continues his relentless training, determined to succeed through sheer persistence. Finally, after countless hours of repeating the process, he feels a spark of mana ignite within him. A wisp of blue energy appears as a result of his efforts, a familiar outcome for someone so used to grinding for results. Jolted awake by the spark, Claire excitedly announces that he has just succeeded in feeling magic for the first time. He acknowledges how difficult it was, noting that it took a full 10 days just to get a feel for it. But she praises his effort, explaining that while he's on the slow side, it's still an excellent achievement since many people never sense mana at all. With the first step complete, she moves on to the second stage of his magic training. She then pours a glowing blue liquid, likely a mana potion, into a small silver basin. Then, with a sly smile, she instructs him to take off his shirt for the next step of the lesson. He is momentarily stunned and confused by her unexpected command. Unfazed, she simply dips her gloved finger into the mana-infused liquid, preparing for the ritual. She explains that she's going to draw a magic circle on his back to create a path for directly injecting mana into his body. Once the intricate circle is complete, she tells him to focus as she begins the injection. He steels himself, ready for the next phase of his training. Claire places her hand on his back, activating the magic circle and beginning the mana transfer. An intense surge of blue energy immediately courses through his body. He's overwhelmed by the feeling, which is on a totally different scale from what he had managed on his own. Focusing inward, he senses something thicker and more powerful than blood flowing deep inside him. And he confirms to a concerned Claire that he can feel the mana flowing through him. Relieved, she explains that he has now completed the first of the 3 basic stages of learning magic. The 3 stages, she elaborates, are feeling mana, storing it within one's body, and finally, utilizing that stored magic. Now that he has succeeded in stage 1, she announces they will proceed to stage 2, and instructs him to create a vessel inside his body to store the magic, using the sensation of holding his breath as a guide. The young man concentrates, preparing his body to store the incoming mana. With a burst of energy, she begins to channel her mana into him. The magic circle on his back glows intensely as the process starts, but something immediately goes wrong. The mana connection gives her a horrifying glimpse into his mental world, a nightmarish landscape filled with monsters. She is assaulted by visceral images of the grotesque creatures he has fought and killed over the years. Her vision is flooded with the endless horrors that have shaped his very psyche. The sheer number and terror of the creatures in his mind is overwhelming. Then, suddenly, a dark, ominous energy flows back from him, shocking her to her core. She reels back in terror as she feels her own power being affected. Instead of storing the mana, his body begins to violently absorb it directly from her. She panics, realizing that at this rate all of her mana will be drained completely. But just before she passes out, the Red Scout Wolf's bladed tail whips out and wraps around her. The wolf yanks her away, severing the dangerous connection and saving her from being drained dry. Landing safely, a dazed Claire is shocked to see that the demonic beast has intervened. The loyal beast places itself protectively between her and its master. She realizes it must have sensed she was in grave danger and came to help. As the mana subsides, Jin snaps out of his trance and turns to her with a look of concern. Completely unaware of what just happened, he asks the shaken woman if she's okay. Still processing the horrifying vision, she realizes she just saw his mental world, and recalls that a mental world is a manifestation of a person's power and nature, shaped by their experiences. Each one is unique, reflecting the life its owner has lived. Trembling, she questions what could have possibly caused such an ominous and monstrous presence to exist in his mind. Now deeply concerned, she asks him to answer a question for her with complete honesty. With a grim expression, she asks if he has ever eaten a monster's internal core. He looks back, unfamiliar with the term she used. After she clarifies that she means the crystal inside a monster's body, he recognizes it as a monster essence and casually confirms that he's eaten them. Utterly horrified, she grabs him and demands to know when he started and how many he has consumed. He nonchalantly reveals he's been eating them continuously for about 10 years, casually estimating the number to be in the tens of thousands. When he asks if there's a problem, a frantic Claire screams that of course there's a problem. She begins to explain the terrifying consequences of consuming monster cores, and she delivers the chilling revelation. Any human who eats an internal core will either die or turn into a monster. As her words hang in the air, he looks up into the moonlight, his eyes glowing a menacing red, leaving his true nature in terrifying doubt. The narration explains the nature of the demonic realm, starting with a concept known as karma or retribution. This karma is a turbid energy that, upon absorption, grants living beings bizarre and monstrous abilities. A monster core, it is revealed, is a nucleus formed by the accumulation of this dark energy within a being. The scene then returns to the Black Marlin mercenary group as they travel together. Claire's thoughts drift back to her shocking discovery about the protagonist, whom she now mentally connects to the legend of the Dark Priests. In a flashback, she recalls the world's history, remembering the day the otherworldly gate opened and unleashed karma upon the land. This event gave rise to the Dark Priests, madmen who followed monsters, absorbed their karma, and consumed their cores. These fanatical priests became so twisted that they even began sacrificing humans to the demonic beasts they worshipped. She then remembers his chilling confession that he has been hunting and eating monster cores for 10 years, having consumed tens of thousands of them. She struggles internally with the horrifying possibility that his habit of eating monster cores makes him one of these dark priests. However, she quickly dismisses the idea, reasoning that a true dark priest would never have so openly admitted his actions or shown her his mental world. Still, she finds it incredibly strange that he would consume monster cores without any awareness of the inherent danger. She visualizes a carefree version of him, casually snacking on a monster part mid-journey, and she remains completely baffled as to why anyone would ever pick up and eat such disgusting things. Concluding that he is simply a mysterious man, an aside reveals that he only started eating cores after observing other monsters do it. Back in the present, Claire urgently warns him to stop eating monster cores immediately, telling him he's only been lucky so far and could die. He internally questions her warning, thinking of himself as living proof that consuming cores isn't necessarily fatal. Yet, he begins to wonder if her words hold some truth, questioning if the cores are the reason he felt nothing after killing people. His eye glows red as he contemplates a terrifying possibility. Could his constant desire to fight be a side effect of the monster cores? However, he nonchalantly agrees to try, which only infuriates Claire, who demands he stop absolutely and never do it again. To get through to him, she warns that continuing to eat cores will also prevent him from being able to use magic. The threat of losing his ability to learn magic finally gets his attention, much to her exasperation. Sighing, she explains that while mana manifestation will be difficult for him, he shouldn't worry too much, and reveals a silver lining: he should still be able to learn and use mana arts. Unfamiliar with the term, he curiously asks what mana arts are. But the conversation is put on hold as the group arrives at their destination, the fourth pioneer city. There, in the city square, they find a massive crowd of mercenaries gathered before a large crystal pillar. Our protagonist notes the sheer number of mercenaries, but Claire hints that the scale of the gathering is due to more than just the job. The reason for the commotion is then revealed. The high-profile request is being personally overseen by a holy knight. The imposing holy knight, Raymond, makes his presence known, standing stoically beside his apprentice. Jin is visibly impressed by the powerful figure before him, and he immediately senses the knight's intense aura, recognizing that he is on a completely different level from ordinary humans. He then asks why a holy knight's presence would draw such a large crowd, and she explains the job comes from the golden bug wolf. Thinking it's a monster, his question makes Claire sigh at his singular focus on hunting. She laments that he truly seems to know nothing about the world beyond fighting monsters. Jonathan clarifies that the golden bug is the world's greatest businessman, a tycoon of immense wealth. He then drops a bombshell: the incredibly wealthy merchant died suddenly and recently. When Jin asks if he was killed, Jonathan admits that there are rumors, but nothing has been confirmed. The reason for the gathering becomes clear: the golden bug left behind 2 sons and an immense fortune. The mission, therefore, is to escort the 2 sons and move their inherited legacy safely inside the city's barrier. And the scale of the golden bug's treasure is immense, making the escort mission an incredibly lucrative request. Our protagonist now understands completely why moving a tycoon's fortune would attract such a massive crowd of mercenaries. Just then, an official calls for the Black Marlin mercenary group to step forward for their assessment. Jonathan excitedly pushes Jin and declares that it's their turn, that this is the most important moment. He proudly presents our guy to the Holy Knight as his group's ace, the man who tamed a werewolf and defeated a mad skull. The crowd begins to murmur, recognizing the rumored head crusher, though they are surprised by his unassuming appearance. Confused by the ridiculous nickname, Jonathan tells him to just play along for the sake of the job. The Holy Knight, Raymond, gives them a cold, discerning look, sizing up the mercenary and his so-called ace. Impressed enough, he hires the Black Marlin group for the handsome sum of 100 gold coins, telling them to be ready by sunrise. A bewildered Jin can't believe they're getting paid 100 gold coins just for moving luggage. Jonathan winks, explaining that in their line of work, the hiring fee is split between labor and name value, and praises our protagonist, saying his reputation as the head crushers is what secured them such a high-paying contract. Jonathan finally explains the nickname to the clueless protagonist. It's because he literally crushes the heads of the monsters he fights. Our guy deadpans, thinking that whoever came up with that name has a terrible sense of style. While Jonathan celebrates hitting the jackpot, Jin is already thinking one step ahead. With his fame growing, he believes this newfound notoriety will be the key to his plan of learning mana arts. Later that night, the mercenaries unwind at their quarters. Inside, a raucous crowd cheers on a bare-knuckle brawl taking place in a fighting arena. The fights are brutal, with one brawler getting his face smashed in by a powerful punch. A concerned Claire watches him wrap his hands, but he reassures her, stating that since Holy Knights use mana arts, this arena is the perfect stage. He tells her not to worry, revealing that he has a plan to draw the Holy Knights' attention so he can learn their techniques. He then recalls reading in the Demonic Realm Chronicles that Holy Knights are always interested when they see someone strong. The Chronicles also stated that earning a Holy Knight's acknowledgement can lead to favorable treatment. Confident in his overwhelming strength, he steps into the arena, certain that getting noticed won't be difficult. His goal is clear, to use this arena, where reputations are on the line, to force the Holy Knight to notice him. The fight begins, and he immediately dodges his first opponent's wild swing, and counters with a single, devastating punch that shatters his opponent's nose. Then, grabbing the dazed fighter by the head, he prepares to end the match decisively, and drives a powerful headbutt into his opponent's face, knocking him out instantly. The crowd erupts, with onlookers cheering for the head crushers as new challengers eagerly step up to face him. Watching from a balcony, Raymond takes a slow sip from his mug. Our protagonist notes with satisfaction that his plan to get noticed is working. However, he knows that simple attention isn't enough. His real plan is just getting started. To truly make the Holy Knight take him seriously, he mercilessly continues to defeat every challenger who steps into the ring. One by one, he dispatches his opponents with brutal efficiency. He calculates that after defeating a few more fighters, the knight will start to wonder about his origins. After defeating dozens of opponents, he stands alone in the ring, his message of overwhelming strength clearly delivered, and anticipates that a true knight, witnessing such a display, would feel compelled to test this unknown warrior's mettle himself. And just as he predicted, Raymond turns to his apprentice and orders, "Rex, fight that guy." The apprentice, Rex, is insulted by the command, shocked that he is being told to fight a mere mercenary. Jin smirks, knowing that this is the exact moment his true plan begins to unfold. His next move is to refuse the fight, which he believes will force a confrontation and begin his negotiations to learn mana arts. Rex's eyes widen in disbelief and fury at our protagonist's unspoken but clearly intended defiance. The scene is set at the mercenary dormitories arena, where the fateful duel was supposed to unfold. Claire, watching from the stands, is utterly bewildered by Jin's decision to refuse the fight. Jonathan, the Black Marlin captain, is just as confused as his mage by the bizarre tactic. Meanwhile, the crowd of mercenaries can't believe what they're hearing, murmuring in confusion. An irate Rex leans over the railing, demanding to know why Jin is refusing to fight. While the apprentice seethes with indignation, Holy Knight Raymond calmly observes the situation. Raymond addresses Jin directly, asking if he's injured in an attempt to understand his motives. Jin casually dismisses the concern with a wave, claiming he's perfectly fine. Unconvinced, Raymond presses him again, asking for the real reason he is refusing the duel. Jin declares his identity as a mercenary, one who pursues money and power above all else, and explains that because he is a mercenary, he can't simply fight a prestigious Holy Knight apprentice for free. With a confident smirk, he shifts the terms of the engagement and proposes they make a bet instead. Raymond scoffs at the idea, questioning what a mere mercenary could possibly offer that he would desire. In response, Jin reveals his wager, a massive pouch of gold, boasting that he has an ungodly amount of money. The onlooking crowd erupts, laughing at the sheer audacity of trying to gamble with a pious Holy Knight. Rex grits his teeth in anger, deeply insulted by the mercenary's crass proposal. But Raymond holds his apprentice back, coolly stating that they have no need for his money. Instead of accepting the gold, he offers a counterproposal of his own. The Holy Knight's terms are simple. They will waive all liability for any injuries sustained in the fight. His piercing gaze reveals his intent. He wants Rex to fight without restraint and end this mockery. Jin gleefully accepts, internally celebrating that he can now beat Rex up without consequences and still get what he wants. With the terms set, Jin and Rex finally face off in the center of the arena. Rex glares at his opponent, filled with rage and the determination to uphold his honor. Jin meets his gaze with cold, unwavering focus, ready for the battle to begin. The crowd roars, betting heavily and cheering for their favorite, the notorious Head Crusher. Jonathan and Claire offer their support, but Jin confidently reassures them not to worry. "I'll win," he declares with a confident smile. Following Raymond's order to give it his all, Rex prepares for a full-power assault. Raymond acknowledges Jin's strength, knowing this won't be an easy fight for his apprentice. Rex powers up, his body surging with the golden energy of mana arts. The crowd gasps in awe at the display of a holy knight's power, cheering him on. The apprentice knight lunges forward, closing the distance in an instant. Jin calmly assesses his opponent's speed, noting it's far beyond that of the other fighters he's faced. Rex lands a refined and powerful mana-infused force punch on our guy. For the first time, Jin senses a real threat, realizing a direct hit could be fatal. Despite the danger, a smirk plays on his lips as he finds the power of mana arts interesting. He raises his hands, preparing to block the deadly blow head-on, and braces for impact as Rex's glowing fist connects with his crossed arms. The force of the blow sends Jin skidding backward across the arena floor. Just then, Rex coolly confirms his opponent's name, and taunts him, vowing to make the wild beast regret looking down on a holy knight. The audience is shocked to see Jin being pushed back, with one gambler fearing for his money. Claire watches with a worried expression, her concern for him growing. From the stands, Raymond observes the fight intently, sensing that something is off. Jin expertly dodges and weaves through Rex's relentless barrage of mana arts-fueled attacks. He continues to defend, blocking each of the apprentice's strikes while analyzing his movements. Raymond grows suspicious, noticing that Jin isn't fighting with his usual overwhelming aggression, and realizes that Jin, who usually ends fights in one strike, is deliberately dragging this one out. After that, he deduces that his passive movements must be part of a larger strategy. Frustrated by his inability to land a clean hit, Rex lets out a furious roar and prepares a final attack. He channels all his power into one last glowing punch, determined to end the fight. Yet Jin meets the attack, impossibly deflecting the immense energy of the blow. The crowd shouts in disbelief at the insane feat of defense against a holy knight's full power. Jonathan and Claire are left speechless, wondering how it's even possible to parry mana arts barehanded. Though successful, the deflection leaves Jin's arm bloodied and torn, a testament to the attack's power. A predatory smile spreads across Jin's face as he announces he's finished measuring Rex's power. Cracking his knuckles, he decides it's time to switch from defense to offense and test his opponent's durability. In a flash, he counters with a single brutal punch to Rex's stomach. The apprentice knight chokes, the wind knocked out of him by the sheer force of the unenhanced blow. Raymond is stunned, unable to believe a normal punch could inflict such damage on his mana arts enhanced apprentice. As Rex coughs and struggles for air, Raymond finally understands Jin's terrifying strategy. Jin confirms the Holy Knight's suspicion with a wicked grin. He wasn't looking for an opening, he was simply savoring the fight. Just then, our guy comments on Rex's surprising endurance, curious if his resilience is also a product of mana arts. Despite the pain, Rex glares back with determination, his fighting spirit not yet broken. Preparing to continue his assault, he menacingly asks just how many more hits he can take. But before Jin can land another blow, Raymond appears beside his struggling apprentice. He steps in, holds Rex back, and declares the duel over, conceding defeat, and promises to honor their agreement, officially ending the match to save Rex from further harm. Jin looks on, annoyed that his fun was cut short, calling Raymond a buzzkill. Nevertheless, with his victory secured, he knows his plan to learn mana arts was a complete success. The crowd goes wild, cheering for the Headcrusher's undeniable victory over a Holy Knight apprentice. The scene then shifts to the imposing and luxurious mansion belonging to the Golden Bug. Inside, the Golden Bug's two sons, Derek and Cedric, are seen stuffing their faces at a lavish feast. Derek complains bitterly about the 10-day delay in their travel plans, cursing the Order Alliance. Cedric cynically agrees, muttering that the Alliance is all talk and no substance. The brothers worry if they will be okay, resigned to their fate with no other options but to wait. The true source of their desperation is revealed, strange, glowing blue growths spreading across their bodies. A close-up shows the grotesque, pulsating nature of their mysterious and terrifying affliction. The scene transitions to the Holy Knight Raymond, who begins to train Jin in the mana arts. He explains that mana arts is the technique of utilizing one's own mana to enhance their body or weapons. While anyone with talent can use it, he notes that one's proficiency determines its true power. To demonstrate, Raymond unleashes his signature move, the Sacred Fire Slash, a technique said to be capable of splitting mountains. The attack cuts down the trees with a single powerful swing. The birds fly away because of the destruction. With his demonstration complete, the Holy Knight stands ready to begin the actual lesson. His apprentice, Rex, immediately fawns over him, gushing about how amazing his master is. But as he gets a bit too close for comfort while showering him with praise, Raymond curtly tells him to back off. Ever the loyal puppy, Rex enthusiastically agrees and bounds away. Jin observes this with a deadpan expression, thinking the boy's behavior reminds him of his own submissive demonic beast. Looking at the destruction, he notes that Raymond's technique is far stronger than the one Rex used in their duel. However, he remains unimpressed, thinking a man of Raymond's caliber should be capable of such feats even without a special technique. Raymond snaps him back to attention, telling him to focus now that he's seen a first-hand demonstration. The lesson begins with Raymond instructing him on the basics to flex his muscles and feel how they contract, and explains that the first step is to learn to hold and contain mana within one's own muscles. Jin finds the process familiar, realizing it's similar to the initial mana sensing training he received from Claire. As he focuses, a wisp of calm blue mana appears, and he senses something unusual. He's shocked to discover a vast amount of mana already flowing through his body, and wonders where it came from. A flashback reveals the source. It's the residual mana Claire had injected into him during his magic training. As he channels Claire's calm mana, his own dark chaotic energy begins to awaken and mix with it. Raymond instructs him to gradually consume the mana, suggesting that moving his body might help the process. Suddenly, he is taken aback as an ominous purple aura erupts from Jin. In a matter of moments, Jin successfully manifests his own mana arts, enveloping his sword in a powerful, violent purple energy. Raymond is stunned that he mastered mana arts instantly, but he's more concerned by the nature of the power itself, and stares in disbelief at the blade, questioning the source of such an ominous and unsettling mana. However, he notes internally that mana arts reflect one's mental world, making the darkness of this aura deeply troubling. Gazing at his new student, he seriously wonders, "Jin, what in the world is inside you?" Jin, however, seems to revel in the new power, a confident smirk playing on his lips. As he effortlessly practices a few swings, the dark purple energy flowing with his movements as if it were an extension of his own body. While analyzing the new ability, he finds it feels a bit inefficient for the effort required, guessing his proficiency is still low. Despite its perceived flaws, he grins with excitement, declaring the new power fucking cool, and eagerly anticipating its use in real combat. Later, as their caravan travels, Claire expresses her amazement at how quickly he mastered mana arts, but Jin gives her all the credit. He then checks on her condition, admitting he felt her mana flow into him when she helped him before. Claire is briefly surprised by his perceptiveness and concern, but she brushes it off with a smile, telling him to consider it a gift for saving her life. At this, our guy thinks there seemed to be too much mana to just brush it off, but thanks to that, he picked up the mana arts quickly. Just then, Rex rides by, scoffing at Jin for getting excited over learning the basics, and condescendingly tells him not to slack off and to remember to be grateful to Lord Raymond for his time. As Jin and Claire stare blankly, Jin wonders if Rex is still bitter about losing their duel. Seeing a perfect opportunity for payback, he grins mischievously, deciding to bruise the apprentice's ego by picking another fight. But just as he contemplates his move, a gauntleted hand slaps the hindquarters of Rex's horse. The startled horse neighs and rears, nearly throwing the surprised apprentice from his saddle. It was Raymond, who tells a disappointed Jin that he'll keep his apprentice in check, spoiling his fun. Suddenly someone shouts, "You idiots!" drawing their attention. The cause of the commotion is his clients, who are throwing food and demanding that their meals be served faster. Jin notices the commotion, but Raymond tells him not to worry about it, and dismissively explains it's just the usual power trip from their employers, the Golden Bug's sons. After that, he elaborates that since their father died, the two have been binge-eating uncontrollably, throwing tantrums at the slightest delay. The Holy Knight cynically advises Jin that ignoring them is the only way to avoid a headache. Jin, however, senses something is deeply wrong, feeling a strange power that grows stronger the more the brothers eat. As the Golden Bug's sons continue their grotesque feast, the sinister feeling intensifies. Suddenly, one of them cries out in agony as his body begins to twist and mutate horribly. Our guy realizes it feels as if a monster is about to burst out. Just then, his eyes fly open as he senses a massive surge of dark energy. The entire caravan is thrown into chaos when the Tarrasque carrying the brothers' carriage begins to rampage. The massive beast roars in panic and pain, thrashing about wildly, and collapses to the ground. A nearby mercenary confirms that the Tarrasque carrying their clients suddenly started rampaging. Raymond's face hardens as he thinks about their client's safety. He quickly rallies his apprentice, shouting for Rex to get ready. Raymond ignites his blade with golden mana and prepares for battle. The two knights leap into action, with Raymond ordering Rex to prioritize the client's safety and subdue the Tarrasque, even if it means killing the beast. Rex acknowledges the command as they close in on the rampaging beast, but before they can reach it, a swarm of grotesque, fleshy tentacles erupts from their client's room. The monstrous form of the Golden Bug abomination reveals itself, screeching horribly. Claire recognizes the creature in terror, identifying it as an abomination. Shaking with fear, she explains that an abomination is a human corrupted by the demonic realm's karma and transformed into a monster. Jin's eye glows a dangerous red as he processes the horrifying revelation that their clients have become a monster. With no time to waste, Raymond grits his teeth and prepares to engage the foul creature. He launches himself at the abomination, his sword glowing brightly. And he unleashes his devastating sacred fire slash directly at the monster's core. The powerful holy attack slices the abomination cleanly in two. Believing the fight is over, Raymond yells for Rex to clean up the remains. Rex charges in with his own mana-infused attack, ready to finish the job, and strikes the bisected halves of the monster, scattering its flesh. For a moment, the severed pieces of the abomination lie inert on the ground. However, the creature's remains then begin to twitch and pull themselves back together with horrifying speed. As the golden bug abomination looms menacingly, Holy Knight Raymond screams his apprentice's name and rushes to save him. But it's too late. The monster lunges at Rex, and it engulfs him, cutting off his hand, the only part that comes out of the monster's mouth, and collapses to the ground. Nearby, Jin, Claire, and Jonathan can only watch in stunned silence, their faces masks of shock and disbelief. Blinded by fury over his apprentice's fate, Raymond prepares to unleash his holy power upon the beast. Gritting his teeth in a mixture of rage and grief, he curses the abomination. He brings his sword, now glowing with righteous energy, and unleashes his ultimate technique, a devastating sacred fire slash that engulfs the monster in holy flames. The abomination lets out a piercing shriek as the powerful attack seemingly rips it to shreds. Just then, the Holy Knight rushes to the monster's mouth. Desperate, he pleads with Rex to hold on and vows to save him. However, he is unaware of the monster's tentacles, which are ready to pierce him. Seeing the knight is about to be killed, Jin's expression hardens. He decides he must step in. Just as the tentacles are about to crush Raymond, a new force intervenes. In a blur of motion, it's Jin who grabs the Holy Knight, pulling him from the monster's grasp. He successfully whisks the knight away from the forest of deadly tentacles. Tossed to safety, Raymond can only look on, battered and defeated, having failed to save his apprentice. With their strongest fighter down, the mercenaries begin to panic, wondering if this is the end for them all. Meanwhile, the abomination's flesh wriggles and writhes, effortlessly regenerating from the Holy Knight's powerful attack. As it lets out a monstrous roar, Jin grimly recalls that an abomination is a human twisted into a monster. For a chilling moment, he wonders if his own consumption of monster cores will eventually turn him into a similar creature. But pushing aside his dark thoughts, our protagonist readies his sword, deciding that existential dread can wait until after he has eliminated the immediate threat. He then begins his assault, noting the creature's incredible digestion, or rather its insane regenerative ability, and lays into the monster with his greatsword, but the flesh heals as fast as he can cut it. Realizing the monster's endless regeneration makes this a battle of attrition, he knows he can't win with brute force alone. So, he decides to change tactics, focusing on conserving stamina while searching for the monster's weakness. The abomination, however, continues its relentless assault, opening its grotesque maw. Jin skillfully parries a heavy blow, the impact ringing through his sword. Straining against the monster's power, he grits his teeth, realizing he's in for a tough fight. Suddenly, a silver-tipped spear flies through the air, signaling the arrival of reinforcements. Jonathan of the Black Marlin mercenaries leaps into the fray, launching a spinning spear attack to distract the beast. He shouts to Jin, letting him know that he and his men are there to help. From the back lines, Claire casts a powerful enchantment chanting, "Thy sword shall thwart evil." Empowered by her magic, the mercenaries' spears glow with holy light as they pin down the monster's appendages. Jonathan directs his men, noting that the magic is slowing the regeneration and ordering them to keep the severed pieces from reattaching. Jin watches his comrades' coordinated efforts, a flicker of surprise and approval in his eyes. A small smile even graces his lips as he admits to himself that he's impressed they weren't too scared to fight back. The severed, magically infused pieces of the abomination drip onto the battlefield, unable to rejoin the main body. Sensing this change, the abomination begins to pulse with an ominous, violent energy. Jin's eyes widen as he immediately perceives the dangerous shift. In a gruesome display, a tormented human face begins to push its way out of the monster's flesh. The creature's form grows and distorts as more faces emerge, powering up the abomination. The mercenaries realize with dawning horror that the faces are those of the Golden Bug's sons, Derek and Cedric. Now in its more powerful form, the monster unleashes a storm of sharpened tendrils from its body. A deadly barrage of tentacles shoots through the air, aiming to overwhelm them. The mercenaries curse as the tendrils snatch back the severed pieces of flesh, nullifying their efforts. The abomination rapidly reassembles itself, growing even larger and more menacing than before. Undaunted, Jin dodges and weaves, continuing his assault on the powered-up foe. he leaps into the air, bringing his sword down in a powerful arc to carve away at its body. In response, one of the brothers' faces screams in agony as it lunges towards him. Jin is forced onto the defensive, blocking a powerful attack that sends him skidding back. He digs his heels in, absorbing the immense force of the monster's enhanced blow. Jonathan rushes to his side, but Jin quickly confirms he's fine, warning his comrade that the creature has gotten much stronger. The mercenary captain speculates that the monster powered up when the brothers' faces appeared and asks for a new plan. Jin outlines their strategy: keep hacking away to expose the internal core, though its rapid regeneration remains the biggest obstacle. Jonathan grins confidently, telling him not to worry, now that they've learned its attack patterns, they can handle it. A smirk forms on Jin's face as he accepts his comrade's bravado, ready to put their teamwork to the test. Trusting his allies to back him up, he envelops his sword in his ominous purple mana arts, vowing to slice the beast to his heart's content. With a determined cry of, "Here I go," he charges head-on at the monstrous abomination. And he becomes a maelstrom of purple energy, his blade dancing through the monster's defenses with blinding speed. Relentlessly, he carves a path through the beast, tearing through flesh and tentacle alike. As he slices deep into the monster's core, he shouts to the mercenaries to stop it from regenerating. Following his lead, they stab and strike the wounds to prevent them from healing. The tormented face of one of the golden bug sons shrieks as it's torn apart by the combined assault. Finally, Jin's relentless attack exposes the prize, the abomination's glowing blue internal core. With the monster's weak point revealed, his eye glows with deadly intent as he declares, "It's over." Focusing all his power into one final strike, he shatters the internal core, ending the abomination's reign of terror. The battle won, Jonathan and the other mercenaries pant with exhaustion, leaning on their weapons in relief. Nearby, Claire tends to the battered Holy Knight Raymond, both looking on as the threat finally dissipates. The shattered remnants of the glowing blue core fly through the air, signaling the monster's demise. The Black Marlin mercenaries erupt in cheers, celebrating their hard-won victory and the boost to their reputation it will bring. While the others celebrate, however, he quietly separates from the group, his eyes fixed on the largest remaining piece of the core. One of the mercenaries spots his friend and happily calls out, "You rascal, you survived too." Unseen by the celebrating group, the mysterious veiled woman watches the aftermath of the battle from the safety of the trees. She leans back with a sigh, lamenting that the golden bug sons were, in the end, just as pathetic as their father. A single tear escapes her eye as she bemoans their utter incompetence and uselessness. Her attention is then captured by Jin as he walks away from the main group, and she correctly identifies him as the one who defeated the monster. She watches with curiosity as he picks up the glowing internal core, wondering who this mysterious man could be. Her intrigue only deepens as he casually pockets the valuable core, making her question his motives. Back at camp, Jin prepares to consume the core he secretly retrieved from the golden bug abomination. He holds the glowing blue internal core, pondering the power and risks it contains. Without hesitation, he begins to devour the monster's core. As he consumes it, a powerful surge of energy courses through him, triggering an unexpected side effect. Suddenly, he's plunged into a vision, witnessing a terrified, bound man on a stone slab. He quickly realizes that he isn't just seeing a vision, but experiencing someone else's memory. Within the memory, the mysterious veiled woman coldly informs the captive that his father, the golden bug, died from his own incompetence. She looms over him, demanding he prove his worth if he wishes to survive, and challenges the bound man, telling him to show her just how special he truly is. Then, the woman reveals a vial of glowing blue liquid, questioning if he is worthy to join her cause. She then forcibly pours the strange liquid into his eye, causing dark, vein-like patterns to spread across his body in an agonizing transformation. The man's body writhes and mutates grotesquely, his screams muffled as the transformation into an abomination begins. But the horrific vision ends abruptly, leaving a sweat-drenched and grimacing Jin to deal with the fallout. His body violently rejects the experience, and he keels over, about to be sick. Stumbling away from the campfire, he collapses to the ground. The backlash from the core's memory is overwhelming, and he begins to vomit uncontrollably. As he catches his breath, he recalls that while eating cores can grant a monster's power, it always comes with risks. And now he understands the most dangerous side effect: the chance of absorbing the monster's memories. He processes the horrifying truth he just witnessed. The golden bug sons were turned into abominations by having a strange liquid poured into their eyes. Connecting the dots, he theorizes that the liquid must have been contaminated with the karma that is said to create abominations. With this new knowledge, he realizes the mysterious veiled woman's true identity. She is a dark priest. The weight of this dark revelation leaves him shaken and drenched in a cold sweat. Just then, Claire approaches, snapping him out of his thoughts by telling him it's time for them to leave. She notices his distressed state and asks why he's sweating so much. Worried, she immediately suspects he's eaten another dangerous internal core. Jin internally debates telling the others, but realizes that explaining how he saw a monster's memory would be impossible. Deciding against revealing his secret, he brushes off her concerns, saying it's nothing. Meanwhile, unseen by the group, the Dark Priest watches from a distance with a contemplative expression. Jin and Claire make their way back to the rest of the mercenary group. The Black Marlin mercenaries and Holy Knight Raymond have gathered, their expressions somber. From her hiding spot, the Dark Priest finds it peculiar that someone who eats raw cores is working with the Order Alliance, wondering if he's plotting something. Her lips curl into a smile as her curiosity about Jin deepens. She wonders aloud if they will be allies or enemies the next time their paths cross. Back with the group, they stand together to hold a funeral for the fallen knight, Rex. Holy Knight Raymond begins the rites, offering prayers to Ea, the god of harmony. In his eulogy, he honors Rex as the bravest of them all, a man who dedicated his life to peace. He concludes his prayer by asking the gods to ensure that Rex's life was not given in vain. Nearby, Jin quietly reflects on the apprentice knight's death, admitting it's a shame for someone so young to die. Suddenly, Raymond's solemn expression shifts as his sharp eyes catch movement in the distance. Both he and Jonathan look up in alarm at the unexpected visitor. Perched atop a nearby cliff, they spot the distinct and intimidating silhouette of a red wolf. It's Jin's Red Scout wolf, surveying the funeral from its high vantage point, its blue eyes glowing. Mistaking its appearance for a divine sign, the devout Raymond falls to his knees and gives thanks. When a confused Jin asks what he's doing, Raymond explains that he is thanking Ea, the god of harmony, for this comfort, and reveals that according to his order's beliefs, the red wolf is the closest companion to their god. He wholeheartedly believes the wolf's appearance is a sign from Ea, sent to comfort them in their time of grief. But Jin casually shatters the holy moment by revealing it's his pet mutt, enraging Raymond, who calls it blasphemy and insists the species can't be tamed. Seeing the knight's disbelief, Jin decides to offer a simple demonstration. With his eyes glowing ominously, he commands the wolf to stop messing around and come to him. The mighty Red Scout wolf flinches, clearly terrified of displeasing its master. Without a moment's hesitation, it leaps from the cliff, obeying its master's command. As the massive beast lands obediently at his feet, a stunned Raymond is forced to admit that it's true. And he is left speechless, unable to comprehend how a mere mercenary could tame a monster that the entire order had failed to subdue. Jin nonchalantly explains that he killed a werewolf, and this red wolf has been following him ever since. Completely bewildered by this casual display of impossible power, Raymond can only wonder what kind of man Jin truly is. He then quietly observes the unlikely pair, his entire worldview shaken. After the initial shock subsides, the Red Scout wolf stands silently before the grave of the fallen knight. Raymond, having composed himself, approaches Jin to ask for a favor. He makes a heartfelt request. If the wolf doesn't have a name yet, he wants Jin to name it Rex, and explains that, for one, it's inappropriate to call a creature his order considers sacred a mere mutt. Secondly, and more importantly, he wishes for the fallen knight's will to purify the demonic realm to live on. He then recalls how his apprentice fought evil until his very last breath, never letting go of his sword. With deep sincerity, he asks that the Red Wolf carry on his apprentice's legacy under the name of Rex. Jin looks over at his companion, considering the Holy Knight's poignant request. Turning to the wolf, he asks if it would be okay with having the name Rex. The Red Scout wolf gives a firm nod of assent. Seeing that his companion agrees, Jin turns back to the waiting knight. He accepts the request, formally naming his companion Rex, for which a visibly moved Raymond thanks him. But just as the solemn moment concludes, an old man's staff plants itself firmly on the ground beside them. An elderly man appears seemingly out of nowhere, wryly asking if he has arrived at a bad time. Raymond's eyes go wide with shock as he recognizes the newcomer and stammers, Elder?" Two blindfolded men in monk's robes, one clearly the leader, approached the group with an imposing air. Jin immediately understands that if this man holds the title of Elder, he must be a person of immense authority. The man is revealed to be Bo, the Elder of the Third Pioneer City and one of the most powerful figures in the entire region. Raymond formally welcomes the Elder, while Jin and the Black Marlin mercenaries stand by. Bo apologizes for arriving during their time of grieving, but Raymond politely inquires about the purpose of his visit. The Elder gets straight to the point, announcing that he's come to conduct an investigation into the deaths of the Golden Bug's sons. Taken aback, Raymond tries to interject, clearly not expecting this level of scrutiny, and cuts him off, pointedly asking if he still believes the mercenaries are responsible for the incident. Jin quickly puts the pieces together, realizing that as the hired guards for a client who died, it's only natural for his group to be under suspicion. When Raymond questions the need for further investigation, stating that the evidence was sufficient, Bo calmly disagrees. The elder's expression hardens as he pivots the conversation, indicating there's more to his reasoning, and explains that while the mercenaries were cleared, the mystery of how the sons transformed into abominations remains unsolved. Leaning towards Jin, Bo declares that he can sense the stench of a dark priest all over the incident. He then turns his full attention to him, directly asking for his thoughts on the matter. Jin is immediately wary, surprised that this high-ranking official he's never met already knows his name. Cutting straight to the heart of the matter, he confronts the elder, asking if he's the one being suspected. Bo remains silent and unreadable, his blindfold hiding any hint of his true intentions. The investigation moves to a new location, the Vritra Arena in the third Pioneer City. The empty arena stands ready, a silent stage for the confrontation to come. Inside, Bo begins his interrogation, noting that someone with Jin's level of strength should have a well-known history. He points out the suspicious fact that Jin seemingly appeared out of thin air, only to perform one incredible feat after another. To top it off, he highlights our protagonist's coincidental involvement in the abomination incident as a major red flag. And he puts it bluntly, asking if he can truly deny how incredibly suspicious his entire situation looks. Jin internally admits the elder has a point. As someone not from this world, his background is undeniably shady. Yet, despite understanding the suspicion, a flicker of irritation shows in his eyes. He questions the elder's motives, asking what any of this has to do with the demand for a sparring match. Raymond steps in to defend him, arguing that it's unfair to force a fight when he's still recovering from his last battle. Bo merely chuckles, showing no concern for his condition. Instead, he pressures Jin, framing any hesitation as a refusal to cooperate with an official investigation. Both Jin and Raymond are frustrated, realizing the elder is being completely unreasonable and is determined to force this fight. Internally, our protagonist weighs his options, knowing he can't attack a high-ranking official just for being suspicious. And he also laments the troublesome prospect of fighting an old man, regardless of the circumstances. As if sensing his thoughts, Bo taunts him, asking if he's holding back because of his age. A golden aura then erupts around the elder as he declares there's no need for such consideration. With a powerful stomp that cracks the very ground, he launches himself forward, and reveals that his position wasn't given, but earned through his own immense strength, landing a swift blow on Jin. Jin is caught completely off guard, shocked by the old man's incredible speed. And before he can react, Bo is already winding up for a powerful strike. The elder unleashes a devastating palm strike, the Great Bell Strike. The attack connects, sending a pained Jin flying across the arena, where he smashes into the stone wall with enough force to crater it. A panicked Raymond shouts a warning, explaining that Vritra monks are martial artists with incredible combat strength. As Jin struggles to his feet, Raymond adds that Elder Bo is the strongest among them all. Bo playfully chides the knight for being biased, warning Jin not to let his guard down for even a second. He tells Raymond that if he keeps taking the mercenary's side, he might get jealous. And with a wicked grin, he unleashes another powerful palm attack. Jin barely manages to dodge it, which smashes the wall. Wiping blood from his mouth, Jin notes that the strike hurt, especially since it targeted the exact spot where the abomination had previously injured him. But a look of shock spreads across his face, as he realizes his body has completely healed from wounds that should have left him bedridden for weeks. He then recalls the grievous injuries sustained during the fight with the abomination. Looking down at his hand, he sees that even the damage from Bo's latest attack is already starting to heal. The truth dawns on him. By consuming the monster's core, he absorbed the abomination's powerful regeneration abilities. A confident, almost sinister grin spreads across his face as he processes this new development. Declaring it a total jackpot, he goes on the offensive, clashing with the Elder with renewed power. Now facing a true challenge, Bo comments that the young mercenary sure knows how to get an old man fired up. Internally, however, the Elder admits that while he'd love to continue, he must act his age and proceed with the investigation. Having confirmed the rumors of his strength, Bo decides it's time for the next step. He raises a hand to his blindfold, preparing to unveil his true power. A mystical symbol glows on the fabric as he announces he will now use his mind's eye. The glowing sigil then manifests directly in front of a startled Jin, locking onto him. Bo explains the price for this power. He sacrifices 2 physical eyes to open his third, the mind's eye. He then describes it as an eye of the heart that can pierce through to the very essence of a person's soul. With his power activated, he demands that Jin reveal his true nature. Is he a dark priest or a new, rising light? The elder's vision is immediately assaulted by flashes of the monstrous beings our protagonist has fought and killed. And he sees a swirling chaos of blood and countless demonic eyes, the horrors that make up Jin's past. Bo's own spiritual power attempts to fend off the nightmarish visions. Back in reality, he staggers backward, gasping in pure shock at what he has witnessed. With the symbol on his blindfold still glowing, he can barely comprehend the mental landscape he just entered. He finds himself standing in the middle of Jin's mental world, a terrifying, endless hellscape swarming with demonic beasts. The psychic backlash is so severe that Bo nearly collapses only to be caught by Jin. Concerned, Jin asks if he's alright, noting that he can no longer sense any of the Elder's powerful mana. Shaking, Bo can only think about the terrifying mental world he just experienced, the first of its kind he has ever seen. However, he notes that while horrific, Jin's mental world hasn't collapsed, which means he cannot be a dark priest. Recovering his composure, the Elder straightens up and puts his hands together in a sign of respect. He offers a sincere apology for his rudeness, explaining that verifying Jin wasn't a dark priest was critically important. Bo then reveals the true purpose of his test. He wants to entrust our protagonist with a quest related to the dark priests, just as a new figure appears at the arena's entrance. Jin turns his head, his attention drawn to the newcomer. A young woman in formal attire walks towards them and introduces herself. She reveals her identity as Cindy, the youngest daughter of the late Golden Bug. As Cindy leads them into a blighted forest, she explains that this isn't the first time an abomination has appeared, and reveals that a plague of these creatures is spreading from the third pioneer city, corrupting the surrounding forests into the demonic realm. Our guy takes in the unsettling news, realizing the very land is being corrupted. When they arrive at their destination, Cindy's grim expression hints at the horror they're about to witness, and before them looms a grotesque, pulsating purple mass of corruption. The source of the corruption is identified as a rift core. This object actively spreads the demonic realm, gradually transforming any area it inhabits. He then sees a vision of priests praying for mercy and purification. In the vision, they offer their prayers in an attempt to cleanse the land. However, the vision suddenly shifts, showing dark, plague doctor-like figures spraying the core instead. Yet, their efforts seem to only fuel the corruption rather than purify it. From this, he concludes that purifying a rift core is no easy task. He questions Cindy, noting that the power of karma should weaken the further one gets from the Northern Empire, and deduces that for such a powerful corruption to exist so far from the Empire's influence, Cindy can only nod in solemn agreement. She explains that this means someone is intentionally orchestrating the corruption, a dark priest. She then warns that if the number of abominations and rift cores continues to increase, the third pioneer city will be in grave danger. Elder Bo grimly adds that in the worst-case scenario, the entire city could be annihilated. He then reveals that they have meticulously searched for and found the suspected location of the Dark Priest's hideout. With the context laid out, he prepares to make his offer. He formally requests the protagonist's help in an extermination operation in 2 weeks, promising handsome compensation. Our protagonist understands that this dangerous mission is the real reason they sought him out. He mulls over the request from 2 of the region's most powerful figures, Elder Bo and Cindy, the last of the Golden Bugs line. Receiving a direct request from such influential people is a significant step up for him. A confident smirk spreads across his face as he relishes the feeling of finally being acknowledged for his power. Later, back on the road, Claire expresses her relief, telling him how worried she was. She explains that if he had been framed as a dark priest, he would have faced not just death, but brutal torture. The mere thought of it sends a brief shiver down his spine. Suddenly, she joyfully announces their arrival, snapping him out of his thoughts. He stares in awe at the massive structure before them. They've arrived at Wall City Yurgis, the city behind the Great Walls. She explains that it's the safest place in the world, a city far grander than any pioneer city. He wistfully wonders if he'll ever be able to call such a safe place home. But deciding now isn't the time for daydreaming, he approaches Holy Knight Raymond. The Holy Knight turns to address the group. He calls for a short break before they continue their journey. As the Tarrasque and the mercenaries rest, our protagonist takes the opportunity to speak with his friends. Jonathan is shocked to learn that he's leaving for the third pioneer city on a new request. Though sad to part ways so suddenly, the mercenary captain acknowledges that this is the life they chose. Our protagonist agrees and asks what the Black Marlin mercenaries plan to do now. With a classic mercenary grin, Jonathan and his men declare their simple intention to go drinking. He can't help but chuckle at their simple, unchanging plans. He then turns his attention to Claire, asking about her future plans. She sighs, saying she'll have to find another job since she didn't make quite enough money this time. However, she admits that while the payout was decent, she's still far short of the amount needed to attend the Magic Tower. The Magic Tower. The name piques his interest. Claire humbly explains that despite being called a mage, her skills are only at a beginner's level. But her ambition has grown, and now she dreams of learning higher-class magic. And she reveals that she's saving up to attend that magnificent magic tower. It's the one place, she adds with a smile, where one can truly learn higher-class magic. Our guy compares the magic tower to a university and finds her dedication to earning her tuition admirable. After a moment of thought, he comes to a decision. He steps forward holding a heavy sack of gold. Presenting a small pouch clinking with coins, he asks if this will be enough, and offers her the money, telling her to use it to get to the magic tower. A flustered Claire immediately refuses, insisting she couldn't possibly accept such a large sum. But he insists it's not a gift, but rather repayment for the debt he owes her for teaching him about mana. Jonathan is absolutely floored by the huge amount of money being casually given away. Claire, however, is still hesitant to accept the life-changing sum. Ignoring her protests, he firmly places the pouch in her hands. With a warm smile, he promises her that they will see each other again. Overwhelmed by his generosity and kindness, she is at a loss for words. Visibly moved, she finally manages to thank him. The two share a heartfelt farewell. Blushing but resolute, she vows that she will definitely repay this favor one day. At this, he gives her a final, knowing look before turning to leave. And with that, he bids farewell to the entire Black Marlin mercenary group. Jonathan comforts a tearful Claire as they watch their friend depart. Our protagonist turns away, his path now set toward the third pioneer city. He then walks away from his former comrades and toward his next great challenge. As they set off, the Red Scout Wolf greets Holy Knight Raymond, who fondly calls the creature Rex. A gentle smile appears on the usually stoic knight's face, and he tells our guy to take care of Rex as well. As the expeditionary force departs, Jin marches silently among the soldiers, leaving the third pioneer city behind. With his mission underway, he carries a simple sack over his shoulder, his expression as unreadable as ever. Meanwhile, watching from the city walls, Cindy points out to Bo that his very presence proves he is worried, despite his assurances to the contrary, and bristles at the suggestion, clarifying that her concern is specifically for that dangerous mercenary, Jin. Her distrust is palpable as she reminds the elder of his own words. She then pointedly recalls his admission that the mercenary seems to have consumed a monster core. Bo calmly counters, stating that simply eating a core doesn't automatically make someone a dark priest. Aghast, she calls his statement reckless, reminding him that it's common knowledge that consuming cores leads to a loss of self. Pressing the issue, she asks if he's protecting the mercenary out of some lingering hope for his humanity, and questions if his defense stems from a desire to believe that the man still has some humanity left. A brief, shadowy memory of another Vritra monk flashes through Bo's mind. The elder remains silent, his blindfolded face betraying no emotion as he considers her question. However, he artfully dodges the question, telling Cindy he'd rather not have this particular conversation. Cindy apologizes for her tone, but then delivers a chilling ultimatum. She promises to keep his secret for now, but warns that if he makes a single wrong move, she will personally frame him as a dark priest. And, she coldly adds, if he falls, Bo's reputation as his recommender will fall with him. With her threat delivered, she turns and walks away, leaving the elder alone on the city ramparts. Unfazed, Bo reassures himself that her fears are unfounded, and recalls the terrifying vision of the man's mental world, acknowledging that while he has consumed countless cores to become unimaginably strong, his mind has miraculously remained intact. To him, Jin is living proof that one can consume monster cores and still retain their humanity. But he resolves to keep this a secret for now, believing the world isn't yet ready to accept such a being. Standing firm in his conviction, he watches the expedition leave, certain that he has made the right choice. His gaze follows the young mercenary, filled with a profound belief. He is certain that the immense power the man wields will ultimately bring great hope to this world. Meanwhile, the first expeditionary force advances into the demonic realm, and the expedition's leader recites a creed, reminding them that just as there is a time for peace, so too is there a time for war. He recalls the command to take up a sword in the name of his faith. His duty is clear, to annihilate evil with faith in his heart. Suddenly, Jin picks up a rock and violently smashes it against his own forehead. The surrounding soldiers can only stare in utter shock and confusion at his bizarre act of self-harm. The blood-soaked rock falls to the ground as he stands impassively. As blood streams down his face, he quietly counts to himself, testing his new ability. Once he reaches 600, the gruesome head wound begins to writhe and knit itself shut. Our guy reflects on his new regeneration ability, recalling that it took 10 minutes just to heal a simple bruise, and also notes that the severe fracture he sustained from the abomination healed completely in only 2 days. A sinister smile spreads across his face as he contemplates the true limits of this power. He wonders if he could regenerate an entire arm in a month, reaffirming that this is precisely why he devours monster cores. Having confirmed his healing factor, the protagonist is now itching to test it in the heat of battle. A nearby soldier, having heard of his moniker, sarcastically asks if Head Crusher refers to crushing his own head. Ignoring the jab, Jin simply apologizes if he startled anyone with his little experiment. The soldier is revealed as the expedition's leader, Supreme Commander Roland, and our guy nonchalantly states that there was something he wanted to try out himself. The commander grins, telling him he likes geniuses precisely because they are supposed to be completely messed up in the head, and clarifies he's talking about him, reasoning that anyone recommended by Elder Bo must be an incredible genius. Wary of the eccentric commander, Jin tries to steer the conversation back to their mission and asks for the plan. Roland, still amused, calls him an impatient genius. He then outlines the mission. They will head north, clear out the rift cores, and push into the enemy's center. Their goal, he explains, is to finish all combat operations within 10 days. Jin finds the timeline strange, questioning if 10 days isn't a bit too long for a forest of this size. Pleased, Roland points a finger at him and exclaims that it's just as he'd expect from a genius, before agreeing that normally it would be a long time. But his sentence is cut short as the ground beneath their feet begins to tremble and break. A mutated, rat-like monster erupts from the earth, while Roland explains that the rift cores have dangerously expanded the monster's territory. A soldier cries out a warning as the beast lunges at the commander. Unfazed, Roland calmly draws his colossal greatsword. With a single, effortless swing, he bisects the attacking monster. And he tells them that the creatures which usually live deep within the demonic realm are popping out into the sun like this, so 10 days is actually a short time. Suddenly, the ground erupts all around them as more monsters tunnel to the surface. The soldiers raise the alarm as the full scale of the ambush becomes terrifyingly clear. A horde of screeching leech rats charges the expeditionary force. The soldiers are immediately swarmed, caught completely off guard by the subterranean assault. Even Jin is surprised, noting that leech rats shouldn't have the ability to dig. Roland bellows orders, warning his men to cover their backs or they'll be killed. Despite their training, the soldiers are quickly overwhelmed by the sheer number of mutated rats. Spotting Jin standing motionless amidst the chaos, Roland screams for him to watch out. The commander's eyes widen in horror at what he witnesses next. A pack of leech rats descends upon the mercenary, who makes no move to defend himself. With a chillingly calm expression, he allows the monsters to swarm and begin tearing at him. A panicked Roland screams, unable to comprehend why the man is just letting the monsters attack him. In the heart of the swarm, Jin stabs a leech rat, not to kill it, but to begin his feast. He then presses his blade into the creature, initiating the gruesome process of absorbing its core. The leech rats screech, continuing their assault as he endures the pain to consume their power. As he's being mauled, his only thought is of the power he'll gain, wondering if he'll inherit their digging ability. With a terrifying, blood-soaked grin, he realizes that the monsters right in front of his eyes only look like monster cores to him. Jin frantically continues to devour the cores of the leech rats. This process, known as inheritance, offers a slim chance to absorb a monster's skills. And he reveals, this rare phenomenon is the secret to how he survived the brutal demonic realm for 12 long years. Having devoured 40 cores, he feels full but is disappointed that he hasn't gained the digging ability he was hoping for. Just then, a concerned soldier rushes to his side, asking if he's alright amidst the chaos. Annoyed at the interruption, Jin yells at the man to maintain formation, frustrated that he can't secretly eat the cores. However, the soldier pulls him back from the horde, reassuring him that they are safe now. The reason for their safety is soon revealed. The Holy Choir has begun their performance. Supreme Commander Roland leads his orchestral support unit, playing a powerful melody that buffs the entire army. The commander smiles confidently as his music flows across the battlefield, turning the tide of the fight. Empowered by the music, the soldiers feel their strength surge and charge back into the fray to slaughter the remaining monsters. Jin notices that the soldiers' stamina and defense have increased significantly from the holy songs. More importantly, he's shocked to realize that Roland, the commander he mistook for a swordsman, is actually a supporter. Roland masterfully plays his violin, channeling his power through the music. Under his command, the empowered troops rally for a final assault. With their newfound strength, they launch a decisive counterattack against the leech rats. Night falls over the battlefield after the expedition's victory. An officer announces that everyone's performance will be recorded to determine their rewards, and so, the soldiers gather to have their contributions to the battle assessed and logged. Nearby, by a campfire, two soldiers gossip about Jin's bizarre behavior, from smashing his own head to charging into the monster horde. They are now perplexed to see him digging frantically in the dirt, trying to find something. Our guy soon gives up, frustrated that despite eating so many Leechrat cores, he failed to inherit their digging ability. Just then, Supreme Commander Roland approaches, asking if he's alright after the battle. Jin turns and apologizes if his reckless actions startled the commander. But Roland dismisses the apology, calling his fighting impressive and admitting he thought the mercenary was going to die. He then asks for confirmation on Jin's staggering kill count, 267 Leechrats by himself. The commander notes that this number dwarfs the kill counts of average soldiers and even the elite Holy Knights. Impressed, he remarks that prodigies are truly on another level. Jin, however, internally scoffs, thinking that if he'd focused on fighting instead of eating cores, the Holy Knights would have easily surpassed him. Changing the subject, he bluntly asks Roland if he's part of the support force. Roland reacts with comical offense, demanding to know if he's looking down on supporters. Jin quickly clarifies that he was simply surprised, assuming a man like the commander would be more interested in raw power. A bit embarrassed, Roland admits that he has seen right through him. He confesses that deep down he wants to be a swordsman, but his serious expression hints at a deeper reason why he doesn't just wield one, and explains that the Order Alliance's primary purpose is to fight for peace. In a world where so many are dying and have lost their homes, he chose the role where he could be of the most help. He then humbly admits his swordsmanship is only slightly better than average. However, he proudly boasts that his musical skills are considered top tier within the entire Order Alliance. Hearing this, Jin reconsiders his initial impression of the commander, who he first thought would be annoying, and concludes that Roland is a much more decent person than he had anticipated. The two part on good terms, with the commander agreeing to give Jin a private performance sometime. As the banners of the Order Alliance wave in the wind, the expedition presses on. 1 week later, the expeditionary force has pushed deep into the demonic realm. During a strategy meeting, the commanders note their advance through territories filled with rift cores and monsters. So he asks one of his officers for a report on the soldiers' morale as the monsters grow stronger. The officer surprisingly reports that the soldiers are even more spirited than when they first started. The reason for their high morale is Jin, who single-handedly tears through hordes of kobolds. His overwhelming power makes the march feel less like a dangerous expedition and more like a casual stroll for the regular soldiers. He even takes on massive, powerful, large-eared monsters without breaking a sweat. With vicious efficiency, he cuts down every beast that stands in their way. After each kill, he immediately consumes the monster's core, continuing his quest for new abilities. But once again, he's disappointed to find the core is a dud, granting him no new powers. Back at the meeting, an officer points out that the mercenary is taking care of every single monster the moment they appear. Hearing this, Roland can't help but chuckle at the situation, and laughingly asks a stoic knight if the pride of the Order Alliance is hurt by being outdone by a single mercenary. The knight retorts that it's no laughing matter, worrying the soldiers have become too relaxed, and that Jin will claim a massive share of the rewards. Roland simply dismisses his concerns, stating that low casualties are a good thing and that the stronger monsters signal they are close to their destination. He concludes the meeting by advising everyone to rest while they still can. Meanwhile, in a dark cavern, a group of dark priests gather atop crumbling pillars. The masked dark priest confirms that the Order Alliance is on its way, and wonders aloud how the Alliance managed to find their location. The mysterious veiled woman states it was inevitable, given how many rift cores they planted in the area. She then reveals that their youngest sibling had anticipated this much when she made her move, and remarks that even their incompetent sibling couldn't have messed this up. The hat-wearing dark priest listens to his associates from his own pillar. He confidently reassures them that the defenders always hold the advantage over the attackers, and smirks, noting the enemy's reaction was only slightly earlier than they had expected. Ultimately, he declares that the Alliance's arrival will not interfere with their great plan of darkness. Soon, the expeditionary force, led by Roland and Jin, arrives at their destination. Roland is shocked to discover the path forward is blocked by massive, unnatural spiderwebs. The entire army looks on in disbelief at the madness before them, a chasm completely covered in thick webbing. And from the darkness below, giant spiders begin to emerge, springing the trap. A priest with the expeditionary force confirms their destination, noting a high concentration of corrupt demonic energy in the area. Supreme Commander Roland expresses his unease, admitting he's never heard of such a place before. Soon after, the army arrives at the edge of a vast, bewildering chasm, its sides bound by unnaturally thick spiderwebs. Our protagonist, Jin, immediately voices his suspicion to Roland, pointing out the tactical strangeness of their surroundings. He explains that while high ground offers a strategic advantage, digging a deep hole for a hideout makes no defensive sense. Roland suggests it might be to avoid exposure, but Jin counters that a simple tunnel would have been a far better option. While the commander puzzles over the bizarre landscape, Jin interrupts his thoughts to deliver a grim assessment. Drawing on his years of survival experience, he declares with chilling certainty that this entire location is a trap. Roland is left momentarily stunned, unable to process the gravity of the sudden and dire warning. Just as the warning sinks in, the ground crumbles and monsters begin to emerge, proving his instincts correct. The ambush is sprung as monstrous figures leap from the chasm, launching their surprise attack on the expeditionary force. A soldier cries out in terror, identifying the enormous ape-like ambushers as the dreaded Bigfoots. The Bigfoot is a massive monster, growing 4 to 7 meters tall and possessing immense physical strength. Often working in tandem with it is the Salmosa, a snake monster known for its durable scales and deadly venom. The fearsome monster duos charge forward, throwing the organized ranks of the expeditionary force into chaos. Panic erupts as more soldiers are swatted off the cliff's edge, sent plummeting into the web-filled chasm below. The unfortunate soldiers are instantly caught in the spider's thick webbing, their struggles futile. A fellow soldier curses as he is ensnared by the giant spiders lurking below. Trapped and terrified, he can only scream as a giant spider descends upon him, fangs bared. Amidst the chaos, a frantic Roland bellows orders, telling his overwhelmed troops to focus their attacks on the Bigfoots first. Struggling against the monster's sheer size, he desperately calls for the Holy Choir to hurry and cast buffs on the soldiers. But while everyone else panics, a predatory grin spreads across Jin's face as he eagerly welcomes the challenge. A massive Bigfoot stomps forward, its raw power shaking the very ground. Our protagonist calmly faces down the alpha of the pack, a formidable Bigfoot with its Salmosa partner wrapped around it. Effortlessly dodging a crushing blow, he leaps into the air to engage the monster duo directly. The soldiers can only stare in disbelief at the sight of a single man charging the very monster that's tearing them apart. Roland screams his name in alarm, fearing the mercenary is rushing to his death. Yet Jin coolly sizes up his target, identifying it as the largest and strongest of the pack. With utter confidence, he locks eyes with the beast, informing it that he is the opponent it should be worried about. Just then, both fall into the chasm. Our guy draws his immense blade and drives it into the edge of the chasm. As he gains balance, he then turns his attention to his opponent. He nimbly evades the Bigfoot's frenzied attacks, using the chasm's vertical walls to his advantage, and quickly analyzes the Bigfoot's primary strengths, high mobility, and the ability to use the terrain. He also notes its immense strength in close-quarters combat, a deadly combination. And to top it off, the Salmosa provides a ranged threat with its deadly acidic poison. As he considers these powerful traits, a familiar hunger begins to surface. Seeing each of the monster's skills as a potential new power, he grins and declares, "You look absolutely delicious." Jin unleashes a powerful spinning slash, cutting through webs to build momentum for his assault. Even he uses the tension from the severed web to launch himself into a perfect position above the monster, and moves forward, blocking each of the monster's attacks. He recalls his extensive knowledge of monster ecology, remembering that while a duo's strength is often multiplied, but this multiplication comes with a critical, shared weakness that he plans to exploit. He knows that just as it's difficult for him to fight two monsters at once, it's equally hard for two different monsters to coordinate their bodies as a single entity. Jin prepares his attack, knowing that no matter how good their teamwork appears, instinct will override it under pressure. So he predicts that once exposed to true danger, the Bigfoot will abandon strategy and move purely on survival instinct. Just as he dodges, the enraged Bigfoot swings a wild punch, aiming to crush him against the cliff wall. But in its mindless fury, the devastating punch misses its target and instead fatally crushes the head of its Salmosa partner. The Bigfoot roars in agony and shock as it realizes what it has done. With the Salmosa dead, he smirks, proclaiming that this is the precise method for hunting two monsters at once. Before the grieving Bigfoot can recover, Jin unleashes the full power of his mana arts, bisecting the beast with one clean strike. Standing amidst the carnage, he casually surveys his handiwork with a critical eye. He gives a wry smile, remarking that for a mere gatekeeper, the monster duo was a decent warm-up. Suddenly, his senses pick up on a familiar purple aura, and he pauses. His eyes are drawn to the corpse of the Salmosa, where he spots something intriguing. He finds the Salmosa's monster core, but senses a strange, unnatural feeling emanating from it. Despite his instincts warning him, he dismisses the odd feeling and decides to absorb the cores anyway. He then grabs both cores, ready to devour their power simultaneously. As he begins the absorption process, the cores pulse ominously in his hand. An intense surge of energy courses through him, so powerful it forces him to cough up blood. Then, a mental notification confirms the monster's ability has been successfully absorbed, and he realizes with glee that after devouring so many cores, he can finally distinguish which ones offer ability inheritance. Ecstatic about this massive haul, he eagerly prepares to see what new ability he has gained. However, he's taken aback when he sees a volatile, glowing fire orb. To his shock, the orb of energy violently detonates in a massive, fiery explosion. Meanwhile, in a hidden location, the hat-wearing dark priest lets out a sinister laugh, his trap sprung. He cackles with glee, believing he has eliminated the threat, and mocks the supposedly dead hero, calling him a pathetic human for being so relaxed in enemy territory. But his triumphant laughter cuts short as he senses that his target somehow survived the blast. He watches in disbelief as Jin emerges from the flames, declaring the trap a failure. Jin stands unharmed, his body now covered in a tough, crackling, rock-like hide. Slightly annoyed, he laments that because he absorbed both cores, he inherited the Bigfoot's explosion-proof skin instead of the Salmosa's poison ability he'd hoped for. As he rises, his newly acquired stone skin ability is revealed, glowing with residual heat from the blast. While disappointed it wasn't the poison ability he'd hoped for, he acknowledges the stone skin's usefulness in blocking the fire. However, he tables his curiosity about the new power for later. There's a more pressing matter at hand. With his resolve hardened, he grabs his greatsword, ready to re-engage. Channeling his immense strength, our protagonist deflects the attack as he swings his massive blade. With a look of sheer determination, he declares that the fight is far from over. The priest is utterly stunned, unable to believe his opponent managed to block the attack not once, but twice. Suddenly, he connects the dots, realizing this must be the infamous core eater he's heard rumors about. Now aware of his opponent's true nature, he decides he has to go all out. And so, he unleashes a horrifying swarm of spider-like appendages from his back, revealing his own monstrous power. The two clash in a brutal exchange, our hero's sword meeting the priest's bladed limbs with explosive force. He is momentarily knocked back by his opponent's surprisingly powerful assault. His eyes widen as he recognizes the nature of the priest's grotesque transformation, and identifies the power as inheritance, deducing that the priest gained his spider-like abilities by consuming a monster core just like him. The dark priest smirks, revealing that he's been eagerly anticipating a confrontation with the core eater. With a manic grin, he expresses his twisted gratitude that his prey walked right into the trap. To complicate matters, he then summons an army of spider minions from the chasm walls. Our protagonist realizes with alarm that the dark priest didn't come alone. The minions immediately coordinate their attack, unleashing a deadly combination of fire and poison gas. The two elements combine, creating a powerful and volatile mixture aimed directly at him. However, he braces himself, using his greatsword and stone skin to block the brunt of the fiery, poisonous explosion. Yet even with his incredible durability, he is staggered by the sheer firepower of the combined attack. The battlefield is consumed by a massive detonation, obscuring him from view. From a safe distance, Supreme Commander Roland and the expeditionary force witness the devastating explosion. Roland watches with grave concern, shouting the young man's name into the chaos. As the smoke clears, the battlefield is revealed to be a smoldering crater. Confident in his attack, the dark priest looks on with a satisfied smirk, deeming the result excellent. But emerging from the flames, battered but not broken, stands our hero, forcing the priest to question if he can even be called human. Just then, our guy assesses his condition, noting that the combination of poison and fire was far stronger than he anticipated, pushing his stone skin to its limit, and concedes that, as expected, the dark priests are not to be underestimated. Before he can recover, the priest closes the distance in an instant, renewing his assault. He presses his advantage, eager to test how the so-called core eater handles close-quarters combat. Using his multiple spider limbs, he unleashes a flurry of attacks, forcing his opponent onto the defensive. Our guy struggles to block the attacks. When he notices he's going to be overpowered, he infuses his sword with his own dark mana to parry the powerful attacks. Taking advantage of the opening, the spider minion scorches back with a blast of fire. He is completely overwhelmed, caught between the priest's melee attacks and the spider's ranged assault. So he realizes he needs to take out the spiders, but the priest's constant pressure makes it impossible. Even he feels his body failing, his internal organs are damaged, and both his regeneration and stone skin are at their breaking point. Sensing his opponent's weakness, the priest grins sadistically and moves in for the finishing blow. With no other options, our hero braces for impact, knowing he can't endure much more. However, the priest's sharp limb smashes through his guard, delivering a brutal, decisive strike. Disarmed and defeated, his greatsword clatters to the dusty ground. The dark priest lets out a victorious cackle. savoring his apparent victory. He finds his captive's abilities intriguing, remarking that he now understands why his superiors were so interested in him. Impressed by his skills, he declares him too valuable a talent to simply kill, and decides to make him a special offer. He then formally invites him to join the ranks of the Dark Priests, promising to spare his life in return. But the young man remains silent, his cold stare unwavering. His captor insists it's a good offer, explaining that such power already makes him special and separate from normal humans, and warns that ordinary people will fear and attempt to forbid the very power he wields. Eventually, the priest argues, the Order Alliance will brand him a Dark Priest and try to kill him. He reminds him of Holy Knight Raymond's inherent suspicion, and also brings up Elder Bo's initial distrust, arguing that even his supposed allies secretly see him as a monster. The priest drives his point home, asking if he truly believes the Alliance will still see him as human, and then extends his hand, urging him to join forces with those who are in the same situation. Even he promises him the chance to become even stronger and wield greater power by joining their cause. In response, our hero spits blood and a single defiant curse, rejecting the offer outright. He tiredly dismisses the monologue, asking why a clown like the priest talks so much, and prepares to teach him a final, painful lesson. At this, the priest is offended and shocked. Our guy calmly remarks that he really didn't want to use his hidden power. A terrifying red energy begins to leak from his eye as he says the priest has left him no choice. The priest can only look on in confusion and alarm as a sinister red aura begins to envelop his captive. Then, tendrils of pure blood-red energy erupt from his body. The priest struggles in terror, unable to comprehend this sudden reversal. His eyes widen in horror as he feels the sheer, overwhelming pressure of the power being unleashed. Our hero's body is wreathed in a terrifying combination of red and black energy, his stone skin crumbling away. He mockingly tells the priest that he should at least say something that makes sense. Just then, the red energy explodes outwards, creating a massive demonic silhouette that dwarfs his opponent. With his eyes glowing red and his body transformed, he scoffs at the priest's hierarchy, contemptuously asking, how could a wolf ever serve a dog? The hat-wearing Dark Priest can only stare in abject terror, completely bewildered by this monstrous transformation. Struck with a horrifying realization, he wonders if his opponent had been hiding this cataclysmic power the entire time. In a desperate move, he unleashes his spider minions and orders them to turn him into ashes, hoping to overwhelm his foe with sheer numbers. But with his eyes glowing ominously, our protagonist gives a name to the devastating power he has just unleashed: Heavenly Punishment. The ability erupts, instantly annihilating the priest's spider minions in a maelstrom of destructive energy. The summoned creatures are torn to shreds by the tendrils of raw, chaotic power emanating from him. Even the Dark Priest himself is caught in the vortex, his body beginning to disintegrate under the immense pressure. Reeling from the overwhelming gap in their strength, he questions what kind of monster core could possibly grant such unbelievable power. He is completely helpless as the protagonist's power rips through his defenses and inherited monster form. Overcome with fear, the priest's only thought is to flee, realizing he stands no chance against whatever his opponent has become. But in the blink of an eye, he appears directly behind the escaping priest, cutting off his only path to survival. The priest is stunned, unable to comprehend how he moved so fast and got behind him undetected. Just then, he grabs the priest's spider-like limb and brutally breaks it. The priest lets out a final, agonizing scream as the spider-like limbs on his back are brutally broken, one after another. Beaten and broken, the priest begs for his life, desperately asking to talk. He tries to build a connection, reminding him that they both gain their power from consuming monster cores, and pleads that they could form a mutually beneficial alliance if only he would be spared. The protagonist pauses, momentarily considering the priest's desperate offer. However, he has no interest in an alliance, stating the only help the priest can offer is information on the other Dark Priests. The priest frantically argues that humans will never accept such power and will eventually abandon him, questioning his loyalties. Unmoved, Jin coldly states that his rambling doesn't answer the one and only question. Finally broken, the terrified priest agrees to tell him everything he wants to know. But it's too late. His hand pierced him before he could even speak. With grim finality, he informs his foe that he only gets one chance to cooperate. He then unleashes one last, concentrated blast of heavenly punishment, utterly obliterating the Dark Priest. With his final breath, the priest can only manage to curse his executioner. As the battle ends, the violent red and black energy finally recedes from his body. The immense strain of the power becomes apparent as his hardened stone skin begins to crack and fall away. The backlash from using heavenly punishment leaves him bleeding and weakened, causing him to revert to his normal state. Coughing up blood, he struggles to stay on his feet after the immense exertion. Just then, he collapses to the ground, panting from the sheer exhaustion of wielding such a destructive ability. And he grimly reflects on why he was hesitant to use the power, noting the huge toll it takes on his body even for a moment. He feels his consciousness slipping away, fighting a losing battle to stay awake on the dangerous battlefield. Through his blurry vision, he spots Supreme Commander Roland and his soldiers rushing to his side. With his last ounce of strength, he recognizes Roland, relieved that help has arrived just before he passes out. Finding the mercenary unconscious amidst the devastation, a panicked Roland screams for his men to bring a stretcher. He looks down at the young man's unconscious form, his face etched with worry and concern. Surveying the utterly destroyed landscape, he is in awe, wondering what kind of battle could have possibly caused such destruction. The scene shifts, revealing the victorious expeditionary force has returned to the third pioneer city. Our protagonist is seen recovering in a lavishly decorated room, having been given the best care available. After a long slumber, his eyes finally flicker open. Bandaged and weary, he slowly pushes himself into a sitting position. Looking at his hands, he confirms that he has, indeed, survived the ordeal. A maid entering the room is startled to find him awake. She quickly rushes off to inform the others that their hero has finally woken up. Roland bursts into the room, overjoyed to see that he is conscious. Jin immediately asks what happened, and Roland informs him that he has been asleep for 3 whole days. Stunned by the severity of the backlash, Jin immediately asks about the status of the expedition. Roland happily reports that the mission was a complete success, with most of the rift cores destroyed and minimal casualties. With sincere gratitude, he tells Jin that their victory was entirely thanks to his monumental effort. Playing it cool, our protagonist smirks and says he'll take a generous reward, inwardly savoring the rare feeling of being acknowledged. However, their reunion is cut short by the sudden arrival of an unexpected visitor. A stern official with slick-back gray hair and glasses introduces himself as an investigator from the Order Alliance. The investigator states his purpose is to take Jin's testimony and get a detailed report on the opponent he faced. Jin is immediately on guard, wary of the official's probing questions. The investigator explains that due to the chaotic battlefield, they need his account to complete their records. He then reveals their true suspicion, admitting they couldn't believe the fight they witnessed was between a mere human and a monster. Annoyed that his heroic deed has only brought more suspicion, our protagonist internally groans at the complication. Now on the spot, he racks his brain, trying to concoct a believable lie to explain his monstrous power. But before Jin can answer, Elder Bo appears in the doorway, declaring that he will handle the interrogation himself. Roland and Jin watch as the powerful elder of the third pioneer city enters the room. Confused, the investigator questions Bo's authority, but the elder simply tells him he wasn't being clear enough. Projecting an aura of pure menace, Bo coldly and forcefully orders the investigator to get out. Thoroughly intimidated, the Order Alliance official hastily agrees and makes a swift exit. With the investigator gone, Elder Bo sits down to have a private conversation with Jin. Jin thanks the elder for his timely intervention, admitting he was worried about how to handle the situation. A small, cartoonish blush of pride appears on Elder Bo's blindfold. Bao then tells our guy not to worry about the Order Alliance's suspicions anymore. Reaffirming his faith, he declares that he has decided to trust him completely, regardless of what form his power takes. As a sign of this trust, the elder presents Jin with a surprising gift. His eyes widen in shock as he recognizes the object in Bo's hand. He identifies the glowing object as a monster core, one with a distinct web-like pattern. Bo reveals that he recovered the core from the body of the dark priest that Jin had killed. Confirming his complete support, the elder explains that he had a feeling Jin would want it, offering him the power of his defeated enemy. As a reward for his deeds, Jin gets a fresh haircut and prepares to be fitted for new gear. He begins by trying on a sleek new pair of gloves, the first piece of his upgraded equipment. Elder Bo remarks that the new armor suits him quite well, prompting a surprised Jin to ask how the blindfolded monk can tell. He is astounded by the armor's quality, noting internally that it feels less like clothing and more like a part of his own body, and reflects that, if he'd known how good tailored clothes were, he would have gotten them from the start. However, Bo cryptically informs a confused Jin that the armor's comfort is not its true value. To demonstrate the armor's true worth, a golden light erupts from his hand. Suddenly, he unleashes a powerful punch directly into Jin's chest, testing the armor's defensive capabilities. In a moment of shock, our guy wonders if the old monk really just punched someone who was in a coma for 3 days. But when he tries to process what just happened, he realizes he barely felt the blow and asks what a relic is. The armor, it's revealed, is a relic, a rare and expensive object imbued with powerful magic. Bo explains that the relic is as light as beast hide, yet offers the powerful defense of plate armor. Jin is impressed, but worries about the cost, which Bo confirms is astronomical, making relics nearly impossible for anyone to obtain. Cindy and Bo then present him with a massive chest, revealing it as his reward, a staggering 2,400 gold coins. The chest is overflowing with a fortune in gold coins and bars. Stunned by the sheer amount, he questions if it's really okay for them to give him so much money. Bao insists the reward is well-deserved, citing Jin's extraordinary contributions in defeating the Dark Priest and countless monsters. Cindy proudly adds that she even contributed a little extra from her own funds. Jin acknowledges that the reward is insane, but fitting for the monumental task he completed. However, his survival instincts kick in, and he grows suspicious, questioning why they are treating him so well. Dropping the pleasantries, he confronts them directly, demanding to know why they're being so kind when they know he consumes monster cores. Elder Bo can only offer a nervous laugh in response to his intense scrutiny. Meanwhile, at a remote Alliance outpost, guards stand watch under the full moon. One yawning guard dismisses his partner's claim of seeing movement, brushing it off as just the wind. The second guard insists he saw something, but his companion is cut off mid-scoff. In a flash, the vigilant guard is brutally caught around the neck by a heavy chain. Just then, the Dark Priest cuts off the guard's head by yanking the chain, and lets out a maniacal laugh after dispatching his first victim. The surviving guard stands terrified, demanding to know who the intruders are. His question is answered only by the blur of a massive ball and chain swinging toward his face. The remaining Dark Priests gather, having dealt with the outpost defenses. The mysterious veiled woman expresses her disgust, wondering how their youngest member, Enoch, could have been defeated by such incompetent fools. Her words conjure an image of what little was left of their comrade after his fight with Jin. She then coldly concludes that their fallen comrade was nothing but trash. The ball and chain priest speculates that their opponents must have been stronger than the low-level guards they just killed. However, the masked Dark Priest nonchalantly states that he had expected their compatriot to lose anyway. He reveals to the surprised priests that Enoch's defeat was always part of their larger plan. With the discussion over, he declares it's time to move and places his hand on the cavern wall, and activates a massive glowing seal, revealing a hidden passage. After that, he announces that it is time to initiate their grand plan to wipe out all humans. The seal reveals a horrifying laboratory filled with humans strapped to tables, groaning in agony. A close-up shows a vial of the sinister blue liquid used to create abominations, hinting at the priest's next move. Back at the mansion, Jin's meeting with Bo and Cindy continues. Bo begins to explain his true intentions to a seated Jin and Cindy. Over tea and cakes, the old monk states that he is in no position to reprimand Jin for his nature. Instead, he reveals that he is actually there to ask for a favor and sincerely pleads with Jin to use his unique and formidable power for the sake of humanity. Jin is taken aback, reflecting that he fully expected to be tortured if his secret ever came to light, but he's genuinely surprised that instead of condemnation, they are asking for his help. Relieved and grateful, his apprehension turns into a quiet sense of belonging. He asks for confirmation that only he, Bo, and Cindy know his secret. Cindy wryly agrees, admitting that she doubts anyone else in the Alliance would react with such acceptance. With his suspicions cleared, he gets down to business, asking exactly how he can help them. In response, Bo places the monstrous pulsating core of the defeated Dark Priest on the table. He explains his theory. By consuming a monster's core, it is possible to gain its memories. Our guy confirms, however, that the probability of this happening is normally very low. Bo theorizes that the chance of inheriting memories increases significantly if the monster was originally human. Jin realizes this must be why he saw the golden bug's son's memories, confirming the old monk's theory. Now he understands their risky request. They want him to consume the Dark Priest's core in order to uncover their secrets. With a nod, Elder Bo entrusts the dangerous task and the core to him. Jin is secretly delighted, as he's not only found allies, but also gets to eat the monster core he missed out on while unconscious. With a smirk, he sarcastically agrees to eat the core, claiming it's all for the greater good. Upon consuming the core, he is hit with a vision of the man who became the Dark Priest, a failure who craved overwhelming power. The vision shows the desperate man, Enoch, begging the mysterious veiled woman to be chosen. She looks down on him, questioning if he truly has the resolve. She then presents him with the transformative blue liquid, challenging him to prove his worth. Back in the present, Jin's eyes snap open as the rush of memories and information floods his mind. Bo and Cindy watch with concern as he awakens from the vision, asking if he's all right. He sits up, still processing the vision but confirming that he has learned something crucial. With newfound clarity and a grim expression, he announces that he now knows the Dark Priest's next plan. While walking through the estate gardens, Elder Bo asks him to confirm the intelligence he gained from the core. Jin explains that the previous battle was just a smokescreen, designed to distract from the Dark Priest's true objective. His visions show that their plan involves an abomination crisis that will mobilize the city's troops. Following that, they will use an invitation to infiltrate the Archbishop's celebratory banquet. He then reveals their ultimate goal, to raid the banquet and assassinate all the high-ranking officials of the Order Alliance. Bo questions if the Dark Priests truly have the military strength to overcome the banquet's substantial security. Jin admits he couldn't gauge their full numbers, but confirms he saw a powerful man wearing an iron mask among them. He adds that the red-haired woman behind the Golden Bug incident was also present, and their combat power alone seemed formidable. Pondering the enemy's plan, Bo considers it a bold move and thinks about how they should proceed. Cindy, however, insists the threat is too great and urges them to cancel the banquet and report everything to the Order Alliance. However, Bo immediately shuts down her suggestion, declaring that canceling the banquet simply won't do, and explains the fatal flaw in Cindy's plan. Reporting the intelligence would mean revealing Jin's core eating ability, which would get them framed as Dark Priests instead. He adds that canceling would only force the enemy to adopt a backup plan, bringing them right back to square one. With canceling off the table, our guy asks his allies what their next course of action should be. Bo states that they must use the information Jin has given them to their advantage. A cunning smile spreads across the old man's face as he declares that if they know the rats are coming, they simply need to set a mousetrap. The scene then shifts to the Grand Castle where the Order Alliance's lavish banquet is to be held. Inside the opulent hall, nobles and officials mingle, completely unaware of the impending danger. When Jin makes his entrance, he immediately becomes the subject of gossip as the mercenary hero from the recent expedition. The guests murmur amongst themselves, surprised by his youth and unassuming appearance. Two noblewomen, however, are intrigued by the rumors that he becomes a beast in battle, with one playfully considering approaching him. As he surveys the room, our protagonist is interrupted by a familiar, boisterous voice. Supreme Commander Roland greets him with a friendly headlock, teasing him for only showing his face now, after the battle. Roland cheerfully admits that he was so worried he thought Jin had died during the expedition. Jin slyly asks if Roland was truly worried about him and apologizes for things being so hectic. Laughing, Roland agrees that the last battle was certainly no joke. But then, the commander's tone becomes serious as he leans in to whisper a warning. He alerts Jin that he has a tail, pointing out an observer watching them from the upper balcony. The Order Alliance Inquisitor, who had previously interrogated him, is seen sipping wine and keeping a close watch. Jin dryly comments on the Inquisitor's diligence, noting that the man suspects him simply for being too strong. Roland apologizes on behalf of the Order Alliance for the gloomy behavior of those who didn't participate in the fight. But he advises Jin not to let the unfair suspicion bother him too much, and reassures him that no matter what, the fact that he fought heroically for the people doesn't change. Jin offers his sincere thanks to the commander just as a bell chimes, announcing a key arrival. An announcer informs them that the Archbishop has arrived, and the crowd turns to see the man himself appear. Archbishop Conrad, the head of the church and the Dark Priest's primary target, makes his grand entrance. The Archbishop greets the partygoers, asking if everyone is enjoying the banquet he has thrown in their honor. In a brief speech, he expresses his gratitude and encourages the guests to enjoy themselves fully. From the sidelines, Jin and Bo watch the Archbishop, their trap now officially set. As the banquet reaches its peak, Jin knows this is the signal and prepares himself to face the enemy. Meanwhile, outside the castle walls, the cloaked figures of the Dark Priests gather under the moonlight. The sinister group, led by the ball and chain priest and the mysterious veiled woman, stealthily approaches their target. Just as they had planned, a panicked guard bursts into the hall, shouting that there's a problem. A perturbed Archbishop Conrad demands to know what could possibly be wrong. The guard frantically reports that a massive swarm of abominations has breached the city's north gate. The news stuns Archbishop Conrad, triggering the exact reaction Jin had anticipated. In a flash, the horrifying image of abominations breaking through the city gate comes to life. A monstrous horde pours into the city, overwhelming its defenses. Panic erupts among the banquet guests as they hear of the sudden invasion. Jin, however, remains perfectly calm, his red eyes glowing as he watches his prediction unfold. In a flashback, we see Bo explaining to him and Cindy that the Dark Priests couldn't possibly fight all the knights head-on. Therefore, their only logical move would be to cause a large-scale disturbance in another part of the city. Bo realizes this diversion is meant to scatter the troops, creating an opening for them to attack the now vulnerable banquet hall. And just as predicted, The panicked archbishop orders all available troops, including the knights at the banquet, to defend the city. Back in the flashback, Bo laments that since he has no authority over the archbishop, he can't prevent the troops from being scattered. Cindy coolly sips her tea, assuring the others that she will take care of that problem. She reveals her counterplan is to act before the knights can be swayed by the archbishop's orders. Her audacious solution: blow up the banquet hall first to create enough chaos to keep the knights occupied. Right on cue, just as the knights begin to mobilize, a massive explosion rocks the building. The ceiling collapses, throwing the hall into pandemonium and trapping the knights amidst the debris and panicking guests. Believing the enemy has already infiltrated, the knights are forced to abandon their deployment to protect the officials inside. From a nearby rooftop, an ally gives the signal, confirming the successful execution of their counterplan. Jin sees the signal and smirks. With the knights successfully pinned down, the real battle can finally begin. The waiting dark priests on the rooftops are startled by the sudden tremor from their target location. They watch in utter confusion as the banquet hall erupts in an explosion they didn't cause. The ball and chain priest voices their confusion, asking if the explosion was part of their plan. The mysterious veiled woman realizes with a grim smile that their entire ambush has been discovered. Amidst the dust and chaos of the ruined hall, Jin descends, clad in his powerful relic armor. With his eyes glowing a menacing red, he declares that it's now time to catch the rats. At this, Vikram, their masked leader, makes the call to halt the operation and fall back to regroup. However, the hot-headed ball and chain priest is furious, complaining that he was finally getting fired up for a fight, only for it to be called off. But as he turns to leave, he is startled by a sudden, hostile presence appearing behind him. He's forced to block a surprise knife attack from a shadowy figure who has snuck up on them. The attacker reveals himself to be Jin, who agilely scaled the rooftops to confront the assassins. Having successfully cut off their escape, Jin stands confidently before the cornered assassins. He taunts them, remarking that while it's easy to get in, it's hard to get out. The veiled woman recognizes him as the formidable mercenary from the Golden Bug incident. Putting the pieces together, she furiously realizes it must have been him who leaked their plan. Before anyone can act, an immense pressure descends upon the rooftop, startling both the veiled woman and Vikram. It's Elder Bo who makes his grand entrance by attacking Vikram, but Vikram blocks his powerful palm strike. Bo somberly greets his wayward disciple by name. "It's been a while, Vikram." Vikram is shocked to see his old master confronting him on the rooftop. Meanwhile, Bo quietly informs Jin that he shares a terrible connection with the enemy leader, and gravely explains that Vikram is not just a dark priest, but also a fellow Vritra monk. With a heavy heart, he reveals that the powerful foe before them is, in fact, one of his own former disciples. Vikram scoffs at the term disciple, contemptuously asking if his old master is still clinging to pathetic memories. With growing anger, he begins to monologue, stating that in the past, and even in the present, Bo has always known exactly how to piss people off, activating his own power in a burst of rage. As energy swirls around Vikram, Jin recognizes it as the same mind's eye technique that Bo previously used. He also senses the formidable power and wonders if he can feel it because of the monster core he consumed. Sensing Jin's readiness to join the fray, Bo holds him back, indicating this fight is his. The old master then activates his own power, instructing him to handle the other two dark priests while he deals with Vikram. Master and disciple finally clash, their Vritra monk arts meeting in a furious flurry of blows. The rooftop shatters under the sheer force of their initial explosive exchange. Seeing his leader occupied, the ball and chain priest gleefully exclaims, "Woohoo! This is exactly what I wanted." The veiled woman joins him, challenging Jin to show them what he is capable of. Her eyes begin to glow an ominous yellow as she taps into her hidden power. She then morphs into a monstrous, panther-like beast and leaps into the attack. Jin calmly assesses his opponents, one with the transformation ability and the other a brute swinging a mace like a pebble. But he smirks, revealing that he has already figured out their abilities by absorbing memories from the core of their fallen comrade Enoch. However, he quickly identifies a major complication that will make this fight more difficult. The problem is the Heresy Inquisitor, who is watching intently from a nearby building. Just then, the ball and chain priest launches his attack from above, swinging his weapon down on Jin. Realizing the Inquisitor is watching, he concludes that he cannot risk using his monster core abilities in this fight. Though it's a significant limitation, he still manages to parry the giant mace with his sword. His opponent is shocked, impressed that he could deflect such a heavy weapon with only a sword. However, he grins maniacally, knowing he isn't fighting alone as his partner moves into position. Just as he does, the transformed Panther Woman lunges from the side, executing a perfectly timed pincer attack. Her partner gloats that Jin won't be able to dodge this one, even knowing it's coming. Jin can only acknowledge the troublesome situation as the beast's claws tear deeply into his side. Yet, despite the grievous wound, a confident and predatory smile spreads across his face. He feels the familiar pressure of a handicapped fight, remarking that the added difficulty feels like training weights. With a feral glint in his eye, he admits it's been a while since a fight has made him feel so alive. Meanwhile, the intense battle between the Vritra monks rages on across the rooftops. Their duel is a masterful high-speed display of the Vritra fighting style master against student. Bo admonishes Vikram, noting that his stubborn pursuit of novelty over sound teachings is a flaw that still hasn't changed. Just then, Vikram gathers mana in his fist and attacks, rejecting the label of stubbornness, and fiercely retorts, "It's called individuality, old man." Vikram's raw power overpowers his master, sending Bo careening backwards across the roof. As he rights himself, Bo sadly reflects that he once wanted to support his student's unique path. He muses that while forging a new path is difficult, it can sometimes lead to miracles. But the problem, the old monk continues, wasn't Vikram's desire for individuality. It was that his impatience and excessive greed have tainted that individuality and corrupted his potential. He then warns his former student that dirty tricks built on a foundation of lies are ultimately destined to collapse. Gathering his sacred energy, he prepares to unleash his ultimate technique to end this. Golden symbols of the mind's eye begin to manifest around the steadfast Vritra monk master. He declares this will be his final lesson as he unleashes the legendary mind's eye, the all-seeing eye. Vikram recognizes the ultimate technique, one only possible for those who have reached the highest realm of their art. Mockingly, he concedes that his master has gotten stronger and has earned the right to act so experienced. "But you see," Vikram says, clutching his mask, "that's exactly why you're no good." Then, in a shocking twist, he unleashes his own power, revealing a dark, corrupted version of the mind's eye symbol, which burns brightly over his masked face, a perversion of the sacred art, and declares that in his world, a perfect lie becomes the truth, as he activates his own mind's eye, the all-seeing eye. A fully armored, imposing figure stands wreathed in the power of the corrupted, ultimate technique. Bo stares in utter disbelief, his own technique faltering as he gasps, "How can you use that?" But, unfazed by his master's shock, Vikram coolly asks why he's so surprised by this turn of events and smugly taunts him, questioning if the old man truly believed he was the only one capable of using such a powerful skill. Enraged by this desecration of their sacred art, Bo dismisses his student's claims as foolish nonsense. He then begins to explain the true nature of the mind's eye, the Vritra technique that sees all. It is a technique that allows its user to perceive an opponent's every move by reading their mana, blood flow, and even the twitch of their muscles. As Vritra's ultimate and most difficult technique, the mind's eye grants its wielder unparalleled predictive power. However, this immense power comes at a terrible price, for the cruel technique slowly drains the user's own lifespan. With both master and student now using the life-draining art, they understand that this battle can only end with one of their deaths. Already feeling the strain, Bo grimly acknowledges the stakes of their death match. Brimming with confidence, however, his student coldly corrects him, declaring that it will be Bo's death, not a shared one. Vikram then begins his assault, contemptuously addressing his former master. He mockingly predicts that the elder's advanced age means he won't be able to sustain the life-draining technique for long. As the mind's eye countdown begins, he unleashes a rapid series of attacks, creating multiple after-images. Resigned to the inevitable, Bo accepts the challenge, deciding there is nothing left to say. The old master matches his student's speed, meeting the barrage of attacks with his own flurry of after-images, and so the battle of precognition rages on, with each combatant trying to predict and counter the other's moves. Under the moonlight, the two Vritra monks clash in a high-speed duel across the city's rooftops. Their movements are so fast they appear as golden blurs, each strike and parry calculated seconds in advance. The very air crackles as their projected attacks collide with explosive force. But the immense strain of using the mind's eye takes its toll, causing both master and student to bleed from the exertion. Vikram sneers at his master's visible fatigue, mocking his struggle to keep up. Internally, Bo admits that the hundreds of tactical exchanges happening every second are indeed taxing his aging body. He's not as spry as he once was. He acknowledges with a hint of pride, however, that his disciple has grown immensely powerful. Yet he knows this growth is also his student's weakness, declaring that he picked the wrong opponent in the very person who watched him train since childhood. Even with his dwindling stamina, he is confident that his intimate knowledge of Vikram's every move will give him the ultimate advantage. With sorrowful resolve, he tells his pitiful disciple that his path of darkness ends here. Exploiting a flaw he himself cultivated, the elder's projection attacks from an angle his student failed to predict. Vikram's eyes widen in disbelief as he realizes he's been outmaneuvered by his master's deep understanding of his style. As his spiritual fist closes in, Bo declares checkmate, having successfully cornered his student. Trapped in a pincer attack, Vikram realizes he has been forced into a tactical exchange where he must take a hit. Making a split-second decision, he opts to block the blow he perceives as the lesser of two evils. But it was a feint. The master's true strike slips past his student's guard, aimed directly at his heart. His hand finds its mark, landing a devastating blow to Vikram's chest. A wave of numbness washes over the younger man as he stumbles back, confused and unable to process what just happened. He dismisses the blow as non-fatal, but a dawning horror spreads across his face as he realizes his fatal miscalculation. In a flash of clarity, he understands that a single step, a single misjudgment, has cost him the entire fight. He looks up to see his master's projections surrounding him, the checkmate now absolute. Realizing his defeat, Vikram lets out a furious roar of frustration. And then, the master's final, decisive strike pierces through his student's heart. A spray of blood erupts from his mouth as the devastating force of the attack courses through him. His body goes limp, crashing lifelessly onto the shingles of a nearby roof. Gasping his last breaths, he realizes the devastating truth. His heart has been ruptured. The battle won. A solemn elder bow lands softly beside his fallen disciple. As the master sits quietly beside him, the dying man weakly asks what he is doing. After a moment of heavy silence, Bao speaks, affectionately calling his fallen student a brat. "Did you think I wouldn't even see you off?" he asks, lamenting that a disciple should never have to die before their master. Vikram lies in silence, the weight of his master's final, unexpected sentiment settling over him. With what little strength he has left, he calls out his master's name. His mind flashes back to his past as he recalls the cold day his life changed forever. In a flashback, a young Vikram watches as his parents abandon him at the gates of the Vritra monastery, and remembers the heartbreaking moment they walked away, never once looking back. From that day forward, he explains, he dedicated himself to earning his master's acknowledgement, clinging to him as his new anchor. His greatest fear was being abandoned again, a terror that drove him to push himself relentlessly. Yet, in his eyes, his master never gave him a second glance, no matter how hard he tried. In his final moments, Vikram asks why his master couldn't have offered just one word of encouragement for his efforts. All he ever wanted was to hear that he was doing well, that his hard work was enough. Overcome with regret, Bo confesses to his dying student, "I knew everything." He reveals that he saw his student training before dawn every day, even when sparring with much stronger seniors. He saw Vikram's indomitable spirit and how he never once gave up. The old master's voice trails off, his face etched with remorse for his stoic silence. He then explains that because Vikram himself believed only in strength, he mistakenly thought words of encouragement were unnecessary and so failed to react. Calling him a foolish fellow, he finally admits the tragic truth. Vikram was, without a doubt, his most cherished disciple. As one battle ends in tragedy, the smoke rising from the city signals that the night's conflict is far from over. The Dark Priests are equally stunned when Jin unleashes fire magic, which they recognize as the signature ability of their fallen comrade, Enoch.